Hello, my wonderfully drowsy time travelers, my fellow lovers of slow-moving history and stories that melt your mind into dreams. Before we begin our journey to the distant past, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If these sleepy stories help you drift off, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us create more content to lull restless minds to sleep. And if you're feeling extra cozy, leave us a comment about how long you lasted before dozing off. We love reading your experiences. Now find your most comfortable position. Let your eyelids grow heavy, and allow my voice to guide you into relaxation. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast, untouched wilderness. The air smells different here, thick with damp earth, the faint smoke of distant fires, and something wild, something ancient. The trees tower above you, their branches whispering secrets in a language lost to time. This is not your world. There are no roads here, no buzzing streetlights, no hum of distant engines. Only the wind, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional call of a bird you've never heard before. You've stepped back, way back into the Stone Age. Now, take a deep breath and imagine you've lived here your whole life. No hospitals, no pharmacies, no comforting bottles of aspirin or antiseptic wipes. If you get sick, if you break a bone, if an infection sets in, well, let's just say survival isn't guaranteed. Medicine in the Stone Age wasn't about sterile instruments or precise diagnosis. It was about desperation, trial and error, and sometimes pure luck. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. You wake up one morning with a throbbing pain in your tooth. Not just a little ache, a deep, relentless agony that makes your entire jaw pulse with fire. In your time, you'd call a dentist, sit in a comfortable chair, maybe even get a gentle numbing shot before the procedure begins. But here, there is no dentist. There is no numbing shot. There is only the village elder, a man with rough hands and a collection of sharpened flint tools. He'll take one look at your swollen face, nod solemnly, and reach for his instruments. No anesthesia, no painkillers. Just you, a rock-hard grip on a wooden stick to bite down on, and the slow, deliberate pressure as he pries your tooth loose. And that's just a toothache. Imagine something worse, a deep cut that turns angry and red, swelling with infection. No antibiotics exist here. No clean bandages. Instead, someone might press a poultice of moldy bread against it, if they've noticed that sometimes, by sheer chance, mold seems to help. Or maybe they'll recite a chant, blow smoke over the wound, and hope the spirits favor you. Because in a world without microscopes, without germ theory, illness and injury are mysterious forces, sometimes punishments from angry gods, sometimes the work of evil spirits. Healing is as much about ritual as it is about remedy. And then there's childbirth. No sterile rooms, no epidurals, no emergency C-sections. Just you, a circle of women who've been through it before, and whatever herbs they've gathered to ease the pain if you're lucky. If something goes wrong, well, nature takes its course. But here's the thing, despite all this, people survived. They adapted. They learned which plants could dull pain, which mosses could staunch bleeding, which clays could soothe the burns. They passed this knowledge down in whispers, in stories, in trial and error that cost many lives along the way. And slowly, over thousands of years, medicine began to take shape. But for now, as you stand at the edge of this ancient wilderness, remember you are vulnerable here. Every scratch could be deadly. Every fever could be the end. There are no safety nets, no second chances. Just the relentless march of survival. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and imagine the flickering light of a fire casting shadows on a cave wall. The air is thick with the scent of herbs thrown into the flame. Someone is sick, and the shaman is chanting, shaking a rattle made of bones. Outside, the wind howls, and you can't help but wonder, would you have made it in this world? As your eyelids grow heavier, as the distant past pulls you deeper into its embrace, remember this is only the beginning. There are so many more dangers waiting in the shadows of history, but for now, just let go and drift into sleep. The fire crackles low now, its embers glowing like watchful eyes in the dark. The shaman's voice has faded into the night, and the sick one, whether healed or lost, is no longer moaning. Maybe the spirits answered. Maybe they didn't. That's the thing about Stone Age medicine, nothing was certain. Every remedy was a gamble, every treatment a roll of the dice against an invisible enemy. Let's pull back the curtain a little more, shall we? Because surviving in this world wasn't just about enduring pain, it was about outsmarting death in ways that would make your modern skin crawl. Take surgery, for example. You might think surgery is a modern miracle, but Stone Age people were drilling into each other's skulls long before hospitals existed. That's right, trepanation. The art of cutting a hole in someone's head while they're still alive. Imagine, you've been having terrible headaches, seeing visions, maybe even collapsing in seizures. The elders nod gravely. An evil spirit has trapped itself inside your skull, rattling around like a pebble in a gourd. The only way to free it, a hole. So you're held down, a sharpened piece of flint is pressed against your temple, and someone begins to scrape and scrape. No anesthesia, no sterile feel. Just the slow, grating sound of stone on bone as they carve their way through your living skull. If you're lucky, you pass out from the pain. If you're not, well, you get to feel every second of it. And the wildest part, some people survived this. Skeletons from the Stone Age show signs of healing around these crude holes, meaning they lived long enough for the bone to start mending. But how many didn't? How many bled out, or succumbed to infection, or simply never woke up? No one kept records. No one mourned with statistics. Life was brutal and death was always listening. Now, let's talk about something even more unsettling: the medicines themselves. Because when you didn't have pharmacies, you turned to nature, and nature as creative. Take willow bark for pain, chew on it long enough, and the salicylic acid, a primitive form of aspirin, might dull your fever. But what about the other remedies? The ones that walk the line between poison and cure. Picture this: you've eaten something foul. Maybe spoiled meat, maybe a toxic plant. Your stomach is a knot of agony, your vision swimming. The village healer doesn't have activated charcoal or stomach pumps, so they reach for the next best thing in the time. A substance so violent, it forces your body to expel everything inside you. The catch: it's extracted from the roots of a plant so poisonous, even a little too much could stop your heart. The line between cure and coffin was thinner than a blade of grass. And then there were the spiritual remedies. Because when you didn't understand germs or viruses, sickness was magic, a curse, a shadow clinging to your soul. So healers became exorcists, chanting over the ill, blowing smoke, sacrificing animals to appease the gods. Sometimes it worked, or at least the patient recovered. Was it the ritual, the placebo effect, or just luck? No one knew. But when you're desperate, you'll try anything. Now, let's wander deeper into the wilderness. Because the greatest killer wasn't always the obvious wounds, it was the slow, creeping threats, the parasites, the infections, the silent invaders. Imagine drinking from a stream, not knowing that tiny, wriggling creatures are now swimming inside you, growing, feeding, multiplying. No antibiotics, no antiparasitics. Just you and the slow drain of your strength as something eats you from within. Or worse, imagine a simple cut, a scratch from a thorn. In your world, you'd wash it, slap a bandage on it, forget about it by morning. Here, that scratch turns red, then angry. Yellow pus wells up, and the pain becomes a constant drumbeat in your veins. No one knows about bacteria. No one understands why it's spreading. All they know is that you're burning up, and the spirits are whispering your name. This was life. No safety nets, no guarantees, just the slow, grinding wheel of survival, where every day was a gamble. And yet they persisted. They learned. They passed down knowledge, sometimes wrong, sometimes miraculously right, until, over thousands of years, medicine began to take shape. But for now, as the fire dims and the night grows heavier around you, think about this: how long would you have lasted? Could you endure the pain, the uncertainty, the sheer terror of being at the mercy of a world that didn't care if you lived or died? The wind murmurs through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of 1,000 forgotten voices, people who lived, suffered, and survived against impossible odds. And as you sink deeper into the warmth of your blankets, into the safety of your time, let their stories lull you further, further into the quiet embrace of sleep. The embers of the fire have faded to ghostly whispers of heat now, their glow barely enough to cast shadows on the cave walls. Outside, the night is alive with sounds that would make your modern heart race: the distant howl of a predator, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth, the occasional snap of a branch that could be wind, or something else. This is the Stone Age after dark, when every shadow holds teeth, and every breath could be your last. Let's talk about something even more primal than pain, fear. Because in a world without medicine, without science, without certainty, fear was the constant companion of every living soul. Imagine waking in the middle of the night, your body drenched in sweat, your muscles clenched like stone. You're burning up, but no one knows why. No thermometer to check your temperature. No medicine to break the fever. Just the terrified faces of your kin hovering over you, their eyes reflecting the firelight like anxious stars. They don't say it aloud, but you know what they're thinking. Is it the curse, the angry spirits, or something worse? Because in this time, illness wasn't just illness, it was an omen, a message, a punishment, and the cures could be as terrifying as the sickness itself. Picture this: you've been coughing for days, a deep, wet rattle that shakes your ribs. The elders gather, their voices low. They've seen this before. The last person who coughed like this didn't make it, so they decide to act. One holds you down while another presses a smoldering stick to your chest, not to torture you, but to draw out the evil. The smell of burning flesh mixes with the smoke of sacred herbs. You scream, but they don't stop. Because in their minds, this is mercy, this is healing. And if you survive the pain, if you survive the infection that will inevitably follow, maybe, just maybe, you'll survive the sickness too. Now, let's wander deeper into the darker corners of Stone Age medicine. Because not all remedies were violent. Some were unsettling in quieter ways. Take the use of human remains, for instance. Bones ground into powder. Skulls turned into drinking vessels for the ill. The belief that consuming part of the dead could transfer their strength to the living. Can you imagine it? The gritty taste of ash and bone on your tongue. The hope that this will be what saves you. And then there were the poisons. Because sometimes the line between medicine and death was so thin it vanished altogether. Some healers used toxic plants to induce visions, believing the hallucinations were messages from the spirit world. Others fed patients tiny amounts of deadly substances, hoping to balance the body. Too little, and nothing happened. Too much, and the patient never woke up. It was a dangerous game of trial and error where error meant a funeral. But perhaps the most haunting thing of all, the children. Because in a world where a simple infection could kill, childhood was a gauntlet. No vaccines, no pediatricians. Just a mother's desperate prayers as she chewed herbs to paste and pressed them to her baby's feverish skin. Archaeologists find tiny graves from this era, bones small, so fragile they crumble at a touch. And you have to wonder how many parents sat in the dark, rocking a child who would never wake up, with no explanation beyond the spirits took them. Yet, against all odds, humanity endured. They noticed patterns. They learned which plants eased pain, which molds fought infection, which rituals brought comfort even when they didn't bring cure. Slowly, painfully, the first threads of real medicine began to weave together. But for now, as the last ember flickers and dies, leaving you in perfect darkness, think about this: every pill you take, every doctor you visit, every sterile bandage in your cabinet, they all stem from this brutal, terrifying past. From the countless souls who suffered, experimented, and sometimes, miraculously, survived. The wind outside the cave sighs, carrying with it the echoes of their struggles. And as you drift deeper into sleep, remember you are the descendant of those who made it, those who persevered, those who passed down the hard-earned knowledge that eventually led to the comfort you know today. So breathe deeply. Let the weight of history press gently upon you. And as the distant past whispers its secret to the night, allow yourself to sink deeper, deeper, into the soft embrace of dreams. The first light of dawn creeps through the cave entrance like a cautious intruder, painting the rough stone walls in pale gold. You stir, blinking against the unfamiliar glow, your body still heavy with the remnants of sleep. For a moment, you forget where or when you are. Then it all comes rushing back. The wilderness, the ancient past, the ever-present specter of suffering that clung to these people like a second shadow. But today, let's explore something even more fundamental than pain or fear: hope. Because in this brutal world, where every breath could be your last, hope was the most powerful medicine of all. Picture this: a young hunter, barely more than a boy, returns to camp clutching his arm. A boar's tusk has ripped through flesh and muscle, leaving a wound that pulses red with every heartbeat. The elders gather, their faces grim. They've seen wounds like this before. Most end in fever, in death. But this time, something different happens. An old woman steps forward, her hands steady despite their years. From a pouch at her waist, she withdraws a clump of strange green moss. It's cool to the touch, almost slippery. Without a word, she presses it to the wound. The hunter gasps not from pain, but from surprise. Numbs, just slightly, just enough. This is sphagnum moss, though they don't know its scientific name. They only know what their ancestors taught them, that it soothes, that it sometimes keeps the rot away. And as they bind the wound with leather strips, something miraculous happens. The hunter survives. No fever, no putrid smell of infection, just slow, painful healing. This is how medicine was born, not in sterile laboratories, but in moments like these when observation and desperation collided to create something resembling hope. Now, let your mind wander to the healers themselves. Not just the shamans with their chants and rituals, but the quiet observers, the women who noticed which berries caused stomach cramps and which eased them. The hunters who saw that certain animal fats, when rubbed on burns, seemed to speed healing. These were the first physicians, though they would never call themselves such. Imagine one such healer now, her fingers stained with the juices of countless plants. She doesn't understand chemistry or biology, but she knows this. When chewed, the leaves of that low-growing plant by the river ease toothaches. The yellow flowers that bloom after rain, when boiled into tea, calm a restless child. And the strange blue mold that grows on old bread, pressed against an infected wound, it sometimes miraculously turns the tide. This is trial and error on a cosmic scale, where every error could mean death. But when they got it right, when they stumbled upon something that truly worked, that knowledge was guarded more fiercely than the best flint weapons. Passed from mother to daughter, from elder to apprentice, in hushed tones around dying fires. And then there were the places, the sacred springs, the mysterious caves where the air smelled strange and made people's heads light. These were the first hospitals, though no one would recognize them as such. Places where the ill were brought to breathe the vapors, to soak in mineral-rich waters, to sleep on beds of healing herbs. Did they work sometimes? Enough to keep the legends alive, enough to keep hope kindled in the darkest nights. But perhaps the most surprising medicine of all was time, because in an era without instant gratification, healing couldn't be rushed. A broken limb might take months to mend properly. An illness might require weeks of rest. There were no quick fixes, only the slow, inexorable march of the body's own healing power, aided by whatever remedies they could muster. As the sun climbs higher, painting the cave in warm stripes of light, consider this: every medical miracle we take for granted today, every antibiotic, every vaccine, every sterile surgical tool has its roots in these desperate experiments. In the courage of those who tried untested remedies, in the sacrifice of those who didn't survive them. The wind shifts, carrying with it the scent of pine and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls a sound unchanged by millennia. And as you settle deeper into the firs, as your breathing slows and your thoughts grow hazy, remember, you are witnessing the birth of something extraordinary. The fragile, painful beginnings of humanity's greatest triumph over nature, our ongoing battle against suffering itself. So let your eyes grow heavy. Let the whispers of the past lull you deeper. And as you drift between worlds, between times, know that every comfortable breath you take is built upon countless stories, like these stories of pain, of hope, and of the indomitable human spirit that refused to surrender to the darkness. The fire has burned down to glowing coals now, their pulsing light casting dancing shadows that seem to whisper secrets against the cave walls. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and dried herbs, a primitive pharmacy hanging in bundles from the ceiling. Outside, the moon hangs heavy in the sky, silvering the landscape in a ghostly glow. This is the hour when the veil between the seen and unseen grows thin, when healers listen closest to the spirits, and the sick either turn toward morning or slip quietly into the long night. Let me tell you about the most precious currency in the Stone Age, not flint, not furs, but knowledge. The kind of knowledge that meant the difference between watching your child succumb to fever or pulling them back from death's door. Imagine being the keeper of such secrets. The weight of it, the loneliness. Picture an old woman, her hands gnarled like tree roots, her eyes clouded with cataracts, but her mind sharp as a freshly knapped blade. She moves slowly through the camp, pausing here to examine a crying infant, there to press an ear against a laboring man's chest. She carries no diploma, no medical license. Her credentials are written in the lives she's saved and the corpses she's wept over. When she speaks, even the warriors fall silent. Her medicine bag contains wonders and horrors alike. A wooden bowl stained dark from countless preparations, dried mushrooms that bring visions or death depending on the dose, a deer antler tool for setting bones that seen more screams than any weapon, a small leather pouch containing the only thing that ever stopped the bleeding. Six, they'll take its contents to her grave. Tonight, she's brewing something new. A traveler from a distant clan brought strange seeds that make pain vanish like morning mist. She's watched him chew them during the full moon when his old wound aches. Now she experiments, crushing one seed between stones, mixing it with honey and the last of the summer's chamomile. The mixture bubbles thick and dark, smelling like earth and something faintly metallic. She tests it first on herself, a brave act when any new remedy could be poison. The effect is remarkable. Her etching joints go quiet. The constant throb in her broken tooth fades to nothing. For the first time in winters beyond counting, she feels no pain at all. This is magic beyond any spirit chant. This is the future being born in a clay pot over a low fire. Meanwhile, in another part of camp, a different drama unfolds. A young mother rocks her feverish child, humming a lullaby that's been passed down for generations. The baby burns like a coal in her arms. She's tried everything the elders' poultices, the shaman's chants, even the forbidden act of blowing smoke into the tiny nostrils. Nothing works. As dawn approaches, she makes a desperate decision. Wrapping the child in the softest fox fur, she carries them to the Cave of Whispers, a place where the walls sweat strange minerals and the air tastes like copper. Legend says children who survive a night here either heal completely or vanish without a trace. She lays her baby on the ancient stone altar, then retreats to the entrance to wait. The longest night of her life begins. What she doesn't know, what none of them know, is that this cave is rich in natural antibiotics, its walls lined with a primitive form of penicillin mold. The minerals in the air soothe the inflamed lungs. The cool, constant temperature breaks fevers. It's not magic, it's medicine in its rawest form. A fluke of geology that will save lives for millennia before anyone understands why. Back at the camp, the old healer doses a young hunter with her new pain potion before setting his compound fracture. His eyes go wide when he realizes he can feel the bone being maneuvered back into place but experiences no pain. Sorcery, he whispers. She merely smiles, the first genuine smile she's allowed herself in years. This changes everything. No more patients dying from shock during procedures. No more biting through leather straps until their jaws crack. As the first true light of dawn filters through the trees, both stories reach their climaxes. The young mother, exhausted beyond measure, hears something miraculous, her baby's weak cry echoing from the cave. When she rushes in, she finds the fever broken, the tiny chest moving easier. At the same moment, the old healer watches her patient sleep peacefully instead of thrashing in agony. 2 victories, 2 mysteries, 2 pieces of a puzzle that won't be fully solved for thousands of years. This is how medicine grew, not in straight lines, but in fits and starts. In accidental discoveries and desperate gambles. In moments where luck and intuition align to cheat death one more time. Every modern pill in your cabinet, every sterile syringe, every MRI machine, they all began here. In the dark, in the dirt, in the stubborn refusal of our ancestors to surrender to the inevitable. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of coming rain. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, a sound that would have terrified you yesterday, but now seems almost comforting in its constancy. As your eyelids grow heavy, as the present and past blur together, remember this: you are the inheritor of countless such nights, of endless experiments, of unbearable losses and miraculous saves. So breathe deep, let the weight of history press gently upon your chest, and as sleep finally claims you, know that every comfortable night's rest you enjoy was bought with centuries of such struggles, each one a stepping stone from that dark cave to the well-lit world you call home. The rain comes softly at first, a whisper against the leaves outside the cave, then builds to a steady drumbeat that echoes through the hollow spaces in the rock. The sound wraps around you like a blanket, muffling the world beyond these stone walls. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of wet earth and smoldering herbs, a primitive form of aromatherapy. that these ancient people didn't know purified the air, only that it seemed to keep sickness at bay. Tonight, let's talk about the unseen killers, the ones that didn't roar like saber-toothed cats or gore like enraged boars, but slithered in silently unnoticed until it was too late. Imagine a wound, just a small one, a scrape from a fall, a nick from a flint tool. In your world, you'd wash it, maybe dab on some antiseptic, cover it with a bandage. Here, it's just another scratch until it isn't, until the skin around it grows hot and tight, until red streaks begin creeping outward like sinister roots. No one knows about bacteria. No one understands why a simple cut can turn a strong hunter into a shivering wreck within days. All they know is the pattern: first the heat, then the shakes, then the slow descent into delirium before death finally comes. Now picture the healer's face as she examines such a wound. She's seen this before, many times, and she's developed a theory. Not in the scientific sense, but in the way that all early medicine grew through observation and desperate intuition. She notices that wounds cleaned with water from the bitter spring, unbeknownst to her, rich in sulfur, tend to fare better. That burns covered in honey and natural antibacterial often heal cleaner. She doesn't have the words for infection or antibiotic, but she's starting to see the threads of cause and effect. So she tries something new. Using a hollowed-out bird bone, she drips the bitter spring water directly into the angry wound. The patient screams, it stings terribly, but she persists. Then she packs the wound with a paste of honey and crushed garlic, another accidental antimicrobial. Finally, she binds it with moss that's been boiled in the spring water. It's the Stone Age equivalent of a sterile dressing, though she'd never call it that. Days pass. The clan expects the usual decline. But something remarkable happens. The red streaks fade. The heat leaves the skin. The hunter's eyes clear. Against all odds, he recovers. The healer makes no grand pronouncements. She simply files this knowledge away, another piece of the puzzle, another weapon in her silent war against the invisible forces that claim her people. Meanwhile, in another part of the camp, a different battle rages, one against an enemy no flint spear can pierce. Childbirth gone wrong. A young woman has been laboring for 2 days straight. The other women take turns supporting her, feeding her sips of raspberry leaf tea. They've noticed it sometimes helps, chanting the old birthing songs. But the baby won't come. The midwife, a grandmother with hands that have delivered dozens of babies, knows this shape of danger. She's seen mothers and babies lost this way before, with no concept of C-sections, no forceps, no way to turn a breech baby. Her options are horrifyingly limited. But she's learned tricks over the years, certain positions that help, a particular way of pressing on the abdomen that can sometimes guide a stuck shoulder. Tonight, she uses them all. When at last the baby emerges blue and silent, she doesn't hesitate. Bending down, she breathes into the tiny mouth, just as she once saw a hunter do to revive a drowned comrade. The women gasp. This isn't done. The spirits decide who lives. But the midwife persists, rubbing the small chest, breathing again and again until miraculously a weak cry fills the air. This moment contains the seed of so much future knowledge. Neonatal resuscitation, the importance of clearing airways, even the precursor to CPR. But to these people, it's simply what worked. Another fragment of understanding passed down through generations of trial and error. As the rain slows to a drizzle outside, consider this: every medical breakthrough in human history began exactly like this. Not in gleaming labs, but in the dirt and the dark. Not with perfect understanding, but with observation, intuition, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept death as inevitable. The fire pops suddenly, sending up a shower of sparks that dance like ephemeral spirits before vanishing into the dark. Somewhere in the cave, a water droplet falls with perfect regularity into a small pool, nature's metronome marking the passage of time. Thousands of years from now, doctors will use similarly rhythmic beeps to monitor heartbeats in sterile rooms. The through line is longer than we often realize. So as you drift toward sleep, lulled by the fading rain and the deep history surrounding you, remember, the comforts of modern medicine were inevitable. They were hard-won by countless forgotten heroes, like these, the ones who noticed, who tried, who refused to stop believing there had to be a better way. And in that space between wakefulness and dreams, if you listen closely, you can almost hear their whispers across the millennia, not just voices from our past, but the very foundation upon which our future was built. The first light of morning filters through the cave entrance like liquid gold, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny spirits in the air. The storm has passed, leaving behind a world, washed clean puddles mirroring the sky, leaves glistening with raindrops, the earth smelling rich and alive. But in this fresh new day, an old enemy still lingers: pain. Chronic, unrelenting pain that follows some tribe members like a shadow. Let me tell you about the forgotten art of Stone Age physical therapy. Not the kind with exercise bands and foam rollers, but something far more primal. Picture a hunter, let's call him Turak, who took a bad fall last winter. His shoulder never healed right. Now he can't draw his bow properly, can't throw a spear with any force. In a society where mobility means survival, he's one bad season away from becoming a burden. The tribe's bone setter, an old man with fingers like tree roots, examines Turak in the morning light. He's seen this before: joints that stiffen, muscles that forget their purpose. His solution: a combination of brutal manipulation and surprising finesse. First, he has Turak lie on warm stones heated in the fire, an early form of thermotherapy. Then he works the frozen shoulder with hands that know exactly how much pressure to apply, enough to hurt, but not enough to damage. As Turak grits his teeth, the bone setter begins telling a story. This is no distraction technique, it's deliberate. The rhythmic cadence of the tale, a hunting story Turak's heard since childhood, helps the injured man breathe through the pain in regular patterns. Between sentences, the bone setter manipulates the joint, feeling for that subtle pop of a stubborn adhesion releasing. Then comes the real test. He guides Turak through a series of movements, reaching for an imaginary branch overhead, pretending to scrape a hide stretched on a frame, all carefully designed to rebuild range of motion without words, like rehabilitation exercises existing in their vocabulary. This knowledge wasn't learned in any school. It was earned through decades of watching how bodies heal or fail to. Now shift your gaze to the women's side of camp, where another kind of healing is underway. A young mother named Nara suffers from crushing headaches that arrive with each new moon. The shaman says it's spirit sickness, but the elder women know better. They've seen this pattern before, always after childbirth, always tied to moon cycles. Their remedy is part ritual, part genuine therapy. They brew a tea from chamomile and a touch of willow bark, though they call it ghost tree. They massage Nara's temples with mint-infused bear grace. But most importantly, they give her what no one else can: rest. For 3 days, they take over her chores, care for her children, let her sleep in the darkest corner of the cave. It works not because of any magic, but because they've inadvertently treated her migraines with a combination of anti-inflammatories, stress reduction, and sensory deprivation. As midday sun warms the camp, we see the most surprising therapy of all children at play. A boy with a limp from a poorly healed leg fracture chases his friends through shallow water. The bone setter encouraged this, noticing long ago that moving in resistance builds strength. A girl who nearly drowned last summer splashes, without fear, her recovery aided by what we'd now call exposure therapy, gently guided by elders who understood that terror must be faced to be conquered. These aren't isolated cases. Throughout the camp, you'd find an old woman chewing ginger root for stomach pains she doesn't realize come from spoiled food, a warrior soaking his hands in warm water infused with pine resin to ease joint stiffness, children with scrapes covered in mud from a particular clay pit that somehow prevents festering. Every remedy, every technique represents generations of observation. They didn't understand why these things worked, only that they did. The willow bark tea relieved pain because of salicin, but they just knew it as the bitter medicine that dulls the hurt. The clay mud prevented infection because of its mineral content, but to them it was simply Earth's bandage. As shadows lengthen across the camp, consider this. Modern physical therapy, pain management, even psychiatry, they all have roots in these ancient observations. That bone setter manipulating Turak's shoulder, the precursor to chiropractic care, the women treating Nara's headaches, early neurologists in everything but name, the children playing in therapeutic water, hydrotherapy before the term existed. The fire crackles as evening approaches, its light painting the cave walls with flickering stories of survival. Each flame represents 100 generations of healers who came before, 1,000 observations passed down through trial and error. They had no textbooks, No medical degrees, only sharp eyes, good memories, and the desperate need to keep their people alive. So as you settle deeper into restful darkness, remember, every time you've iced a sprain, taken an aspirin, or done stretching exercises, you're participating in a tradition older than writing, older than pyramids, older than civilization itself. The methods have refined, but the human body hasn't changed, and neither has our determination to heal it. Let the whisper of the evening breeze carry you deeper into sleep, knowing that even in dreams, you're connected to this unbroken chain of care stretching back through millennia, to that first healer who looked at pain and refused to accept it as inevitable. The embers glow faintly now, their pulsing light like a slowing heartbeat in the dark. Outside the cave, an owl calls a sound that would have made your Stone Age ancestors pause and listen carefully, for owls were both omens and allies in their world. Tonight, let's explore the most mysterious frontier of ancient medicine of the mind. Because in a world where danger lurked in every shadow, mental health wasn't a luxury, it was the thin line between survival and becoming the next meal. Picture a warrior named Roken who hasn't slept properly since the bear attack. He jumps at every rustle in the bushes. His hands shake when he tries to string his bow. The tribe calls it ghost sickness. They think the bear's spirit follows him. Modern words might call it PTSD, but labels don't matter here. What matters is that their best hunter is becoming a liability. The shaman takes Rokan to the Cave of Echoes, where sounds bounce strangely off the walls. For 3 nights, they sit together in the dark as the shaman tells the story of the attack but changes the ending. In this version, Rokan doesn't just survive, he conquers. The bear doesn't haunt him, it gives him its strength. This is narrative therapy millennia before psychologists would coin the term, using the power of story to rewire trauma. Meanwhile, the women have their own ways of treating invisible wounds. When a mother grieves too long for a lost child, what we might call depression, they don't tell her to snap out of it. They give her small tasks, grinding just enough grain for one meal, tending a single plant. Not too much to overwhelm, but enough to tether her to life. They've observed, without knowing the science, that micro accomplishments can restart a stalled mind. Now watch the children playing by the river. Notice how the tribe lets them reenact frightening events: the flash flood, the wolf encounter, but in controlled ways. This isn't just play, it's exposure therapy in its purest form. The children process fear on their own terms, mastering emotions that could otherwise master them. The elders have their own mental maintenance rituals. Every full moon, they gather to share stories of hard winters survived, of enemies outwitted. This isn't nostalgia, it's cognitive behavioral therapy before the cognitive revolution. By retelling their survival stories, they reinforce neural pathways of resilience. But perhaps most fascinating is how they handle what we'd call psychosis. When a tribesman starts hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there, they don't banish him. They give him a special role: dream interpreter, weather watcher, channeling his altered perceptions into something the tribe can use. In modern terms, they're reframing neurodivergence as a gift rather than a curse. As the old calls again, consider this. Every therapy we use today, talk therapy, exposure therapy, medication, has roots in these ancient observations. That shaman helping Roken face his trauma, the ancestor of EMDR therapy, the women gently reintegrating the grieving mother, pioneers of behavioral activation, the children working through fears via play, early practitioners of play therapy. The fire pops suddenly, sending up a shower of sparks that illuminate the cave paintings, images of hunts and healings that have watched over this tribe for generations. These aren't just art, they're the first self-help books, visual reminders that others have faced darkness and prevailed. So as you drift toward sleep, remember, our minds haven't changed as much as we think. The same fears that haunted your ancestors still whisper in your dreams. But so does their hard-won wisdom that no night lasts forever. That wounds can become wisdom, and that healing, in any era, begins with being seen. Let the rhythm of your breathing sync with the imagined drum beats of those ancient healing circles, carrying you deeper into rest than you've ever been before. The last embers of the fire cast flickering shadows that dance across the cave walls like ancestral spirits moving through time. The air hangs heavy with the scent of crushed juniper berries and dried sage, an ancient antiseptic blend that these people instinctively knew purified the air. though they attributed its power to driving away evil spirits. Tonight, we venture into the most sacred and terrifying realm of Stone Age medicine, the rituals that walk the razor's edge between healing and harm, between genius and desperation. Imagine a scene that would make any modern doctor recoil. A child read is in feverish agony, her small body convulsing with seizures. The shaman circles her, adorned in a headdress of raven feathers and bare teeth, shaking a gourd rattle filled with pebbles that mimic the sound of rushing water. He begins chanting in low, guttural tones words, so old even the elders have forgotten their meaning, only that they must be spoken precisely this way. Then comes the moment that would stop your breath. He produces a bone needle threaded with sinew and begins stitching symbols directly onto the child's fevered skin. This isn't mindless brutality, it's an intricate medical ritual with terrifying logic. The stitches form precise patterns along energy lines we'd now call acupuncture meridians. The thread is soaked in a tincture of belladonna and poppy, an early anesthetic cocktail. And the chanting. Its rhythmic vibrations are carefully timed to the child's labored breathing, subtly guiding her towards slower, deeper breaths that increase oxygenation. The shaman doesn't understand neurology, but he knows this sometimes stops the spirits in the head. Meanwhile, outside the cave, a more subtle miracle unfolds. An old woman too bent to join the hunting parties, too weak to grind grain, gathers mushrooms most tribespeople avoid. Her hands, gnarled like ancient tree roots, move with unerring precision as she selects only the pale ones with distinctive blue bruises. These she steeps in boiling water to create a bitter tea that eases the warrior's battle pains. She doesn't know she's cultivating the earliest known strain of penicillin mold, nor that the blue bruising indicates potent antibacterial properties. She only knows what her grandmother taught her. The blue pain eaters work when the red ones kill. As dawn's first light creeps across the camp, we find the tribe's best tracker kneeling by a stream, studying something peculiar in the mud. Yesterday, a hunting party followed wounded prey to this spot, where the animal suddenly regained strength and escaped. The tracker notices the wounded beast had stepped in a particular clay patch before bounding away renewed. Now he digs up chunks of this reddish earth, observing how it clings to his own scraped knuckles, and how the pain beneath it dulls almost immediately. He's just discovered kaolin clay's natural analgesic properties, though he'll explain it as earth spirits lending their strength. The true genius of Stone Age medicine reveals itself in these moments of accidental brilliance. The midwife who chews willow bark before births, unknowingly passing salicylic acid to the newborn through her milk. The hunter who notices wounds bound with spiderwebs stop bleeding faster. The children who play healer with exact replicas of adult medical rituals, preserving knowledge through generations, but for every success, there were 100 terrifying failures. The same shaman who correctly sets broken bones might trepan a healthy skull to release evil spirits. The elder who expertly treats burns with honey might also prescribe drinking mercury for longevity. This is medicine at its most raw, a precarious balancing act between observation and superstition, where every breakthrough came drenched in blood and trial. As the rising sun paints the cave entrance gold, consider this: that child with the ritual stitches. She survived when others didn't, her fever breaking as the carefully placed spirit symbols stimulated precise nerve clusters to reduce intracranial pressure. The old woman's mushroom tea. It saved warriors who would have died from infected wounds. The tracker's magic clay. It became the tribe's most coveted trade item. These weren't primitive guesses, they were the first clinical trials, conducted over millennia with life itself as the stakes. Every modern medical miracle rests upon this foundation of accidental discoveries and hard-won wisdom passed down through generations of survivors. Now, as the fire's last warmth fades and the cave grows light, let your breathing slow to match the rhythmic chants of those ancient healers. Imagine their hands calloused but gentle, guiding humanity's first stumbling steps toward healing. And as sleep finally claims you, remember we are all children of those who endured, those who observed, those who passed the torch of knowledge through the long night of history, until science could finally explain what intuition had always known. The cave walls exhale the cool breath of earth as night deepens outside, the kind of darkness so complete it feels alive, pulsing with unseen possibilities. The last embers of the fire have collapsed into a pyramid of glowing orange coals. their heat now just a memory against your skin. This is the hour when Stone Age healers would listen most intently not just to their patients' labored breathing, but to the silence between breaths, where truths hide. Tonight, we uncover the final piece of this ancient medical puzzle, the delicate art of letting go. Picture a scene that would break any modern heart. A young mother cradles her listless infant, the baby's breaths coming slow and shallow like a retreating tide. The women of the tribe have tried everything: poultices of crushed yarrow leaves, steam inhalations with pine resin, even the dangerous last resort of passing the child through smoke from the sacred fire. Nothing has worked. Now, the eldest healer kneels beside the mother, her hands not reaching for another remedy, but simply covering the mother's trembling fingers. This is the hardest lesson of primitive medicine in knowing when to stop fighting. The old healer begins humming a wordless melody, passed down from her own grandmother. It's not a healing chant, but a releasing song. As the mother joins in through her tears, something remarkable happens. The baby, who had been fighting for each ragged breath, relaxes into the rhythm. The tiny body stops straining. In this moment, the tribe demonstrates an understanding modern medicine would take millennia to rediscover, that sometimes peace is the only cure left to give. Meanwhile, at the edge of camp, a different kind of wisdom unfolds. The hunter gray fox, once the tribe's fastest spear thrower, now struggles to lift his own water skin. The wasting sickness, what we might call cancer, has hollowed his cheeks and stolen his strength. But instead of isolation, his people have given him purpose. He sits each day teaching the children how to read animal tracks, his bony finger tracing patterns in the dirt. The tribe understands what we often forget: healing isn't always about curing. Sometimes it's about weaving the sick and dying back into the fabric of daily life until the very end. Now observe the burial preparations underway near the sacred spring. An old woman who succumbed to the coughing sickness is being wrapped not just in hides, but in all her accumulated wisdom, her herb bundles placed in her hands, her favorite grinding stone at her side. This isn't mere ritual, it's the tribe's living library being preserved. They know that when they lay her to rest in the cave's deepest chamber, nature's perfect sterile environment, her knowledge will remain accessible to future generations. Centuries later, archaeologists will find her perfectly preserved with medicinal plants, still clutched in her hands, a frozen moment of ancient care. The true genius of Stone Age palliative care reveals itself in these quiet moments. The way feverish patients are put to watch sunlight dance on water, an early form of sensory therapy. How the dying are kept near cooking fires, so the aroma of food can comfort even when eating is impossible. The practice of placing smooth resins to ground them during pain, as dawn's first light filters fell, for the cave handfoters through flowers through the cave entrance. Watch how it illuminates the healer's face as she prepares her morning rounds. Her medicine bag contains equal parts hope and resignation: willow bark for those who can recover, sacred mushrooms for those who need to make peace, and always the listening ear that discerns which is needed. This is where modern medicine and ancient wisdom share common ground, in understanding that healing and dying are both sacred arts. That sometimes the most profound medicine isn't in the fighting, but in the gentle yielding. That being present for suffering can be as powerful as any drug. Now, as you drift between worlds in this quiet hour before true dawn, let the weight of this understanding settle over you like the softest for blanket. These ancestors of yours, these relentless healers who fought tooth and nail against death, while also learning to dance with it, they live on in every hospice nurse's touch, every doctor's difficult conversation, every moment when modern medicine steps back to let humanity take the lead. The fire has burned to ash now, its warmth lingering only in memory. Outside, the first birds begin their morning songs, the same notes that would have greeted your Stone Age ancestors after their own long nights of vigil. Let their ancient rhythm carry you down into sleep, secure in the knowledge that across the vast expanse of time, the essential truths remain. That care is never wasted. That presence is its own medicine. And that sometimes the most profound healing looks like surrender. A hush falls over the camp as the first winter snow begins to dust the pine boughs with silent white. Inside the cave, the air carries the sharp tang of crushed pine needles and the earthy musk of damp wool scents that would have signaled both danger and comfort to your Stone Age ancestors. Tonight, we uncover perhaps the most overlooked chapter of ancient medicine, the medicine of scarcity, of desperate innovation born not from abundance, but from the razor's edge of survival. Imagine the scene. The last autumn harvest was poor. The game has grown scarce. And now, as the cold tightens its grip, the tribe's healer faces her greatest challenge, treating the sick, when her usual remedies are buried under 3 feet of snow. Watch as she moves through the dim cave, her hands assessing not just patience but possibilities. That cracked clay pot. It becomes a sterilizing vessel when filled with hot stones and melted snow. Those moth larvae eating through stored furs. Their silk becomes emergency stitching thread when boiled clean. Even the mold growing on an old leather strap catches her eye. She remembers the last time someone applied such mold to an infected wound and lived. Now focus on the young mother in the corner, rocking a child burning with fever. Normally, she'd reach for willow bark or elderflower, but the winter has stolen all such luxuries. Instead, she does something extraordinary. From a hidden pouch around her neck, she produces 5 shriveled berries, last summer's precious harvest, saved at great cost. These she crushes between 2 smooth stones, adding only a few drops of precious melted snow. The resulting paste she applies to the child's temples and wrists, not enough to cure, but just enough to take the edge off the fever until morning. This is trige medicine at its most primal, the art of making just enough be enough. Meanwhile, the elder bone setter works magic of his own. With no fresh yarrow leaves to staunch bleeding, he's rediscovered an ancient trick, packing wounds, the carefully selected spider webs from the cave's ceiling, their natural anticoagulant properties, still potent even in winter. When 2 hunters return with a snow hare, the first fresh meat in days, he insists the bladder be saved and cleaned. By morning, it will serve as an improvised waterskin for delivering small, precise doses of melted snow to feverish patients. The true genius of Stone Age medicine reveals itself in these moments of scarcity. The way birch bark peeled from frozen trees becomes both bandage and writing surface for recording symptoms. How packed snow serves as an early cryotherapy treatment for sprains and swelling. The discovery that certain lichens growing on north-facing rocks retain a deep property medicinal called. As the night deepens, watch the healer's apprentice, a girl of no more than 12, as she prepares the most surprising remedy of all. From a niche in the cave wall, she retrieves what looks like ordinary mud, but this is special clay from the sacred spring, stored before winter came. She mixes it with painstakingly collected urine, nature's sterile solution in extremis, to create a poultice for the warrior with an infected spear wound. It shouldn't work. It does. The ammonia acts as a disinfectant, while the clay draws out a desperate remedy that will one day evolve into modern antiseptics. Now turn your attention to the firelight flickering across the cave paintings, those ancient medical textbooks frozen in time. Notice how the figures seem to move in the uncertain light, demonstrating hunting stances that double as physical therapy exercises. The children, though they don't realize it, are learning kinesthetic medicine as they mimic these poses in play. Even in famine, knowledge propagates. As dawn's pale light begins to bleach the cave entrance, consider this: every modern emergency field manual, every battlefield medical innovation, every space-age solution for extraterrestrial medicine owes its existence to these ancient masters of improvisation. That IV bag, descended from the snow hare's bladder. Those advanced wound dressings, grandchildren of spiderweb bandages. The very concept of triage, born in winters like this one, when healers had to choose who got the last berry, the final pinch of precious mold. The fire has burned low now, its warmth more memory than reality. Outside, the snow continues to fall, the same snow that once threatened your ancestors' survival, but also sparked their most brilliant medical adaptations. Let its silent descent lull you into sleep, secure in the knowledge that human ingenuity shines brightest when resources are scarcest. And as you drift into dreams, remember, our modern medicine chest is simply the descendant of that ancient healer's pouch, both filled with hope, both built on the backs of those who refused to surrender to circumstance. The first spring rains drum against the cave entrance like the fingers of 1,000 ancestors trying to pass on their secrets. The air inside is thick with the scent of wet wool and smoldering nettles, a primitive form of air purification that makes eyes water but keeps lungs clear. This is the season of renewal. when the ice releases its grip and the Stone Age healer's work takes on a new urgency. Winter's toll must be reckoned with, the poorly healed fractures, the coughs that settle deep in chests, the wounds that refuse to close. Picture the healer, let's call her Mara, as she moves through the camp at dawn. Her hands, cracked from cold but still deft, examine a hunter's shoulder that healed crooked during the hungry months. She nods to herself, then leads him to the newly thawed river. What happens next would make any modern physical therapist nod in recognition. She has him submerge the stiff joint in the icy water, early cryotherapy, until it's numb, then guides him through precise movements, reaching as if for branches, pulling as if drawing a bow. The excruciating process repeats daily until, weeks later, the joint regains most of its function. This isn't just rehabilitation, it's the birth of physiotherapy, carved from necessity and acute observation. Now follow Mara to the women's circle, where a different kind of healing unfolds. The spring foraging has begun, and with it comes the tribe's most sophisticated pharmacy. Watch how the elder women teach the girls to harvest with ritual precision. Dandelion roots pulled at dawn, when the bitter sap runs strongest for liver ailments, nettle leaves collected with covered hands before flowering for arthritis poultices, birch bark carefully peeled in vertical strips to avoid killing the tree, then boiled into a tea that eases headaches. This isn't random gathering, it's applied biochemistry, passed down through generations. The women don't know that the dandelion contains taraxacin to stimulate digestion, or that nettles have histamines to reduce inflammation. They only know the exact moment to harvest, the precise way to prepare, and which combinations work best, knowledge earned through centuries of trial and error written in lives saved and lost. Meanwhile, at the edge of camp, a quiet revolution is occurring. The tribe's toolmaker, a quiet man named Torv, has been experimenting with something unprecedented, specialized medical instruments. From a deer antler, he's carved a series of probes with slightly different curves, one for removing splinters, another for cleaning wounds, a third for extracting rotten teeth. They're crude by modern standards, but represent a seismic shift in thinking, the recognition that healing requires its own tools, not just repurposed hunting gear, but the true marvel unfolds in the healing hut. Mara has been perfecting a technique that straddles the line between magic and medicine. For tribespeople suffering the long dark, what we might call seasonal affective disorder, she creates a treatment combining light therapy and herbal medicine. Patients sit near the cave's mouth where spring sunlight strikes a pool of melted snow, drinking tea made from cest. John's wort, though she calls it sun herb, while Mara chants rhythms that mimic the steady increase of daylight. It works not because of the chant, but because the entire ritual resets their circadian rhythms, a holistic approach modern medicine is only now rediscovering. As the days lengthen, witness the birth of preventive medicine. The tribe doesn't wait for illness to strike, they actively guard against it. Children are given bitter tonics as the seasons change to strengthen their spirits. Early immunostimulants, hunters rub a paste of crushed garlic and bear fat on their skin to repel insects, natural insecticide. The entire camp relocates hill as slightly malfrumps to avoid batter malaria preventions. A very action is a brick in the fortress of health. Every air the stem health, built from hard-won experience. That relocated camp. They don't know about mosquitoes carrying disease, only that people sicken less when they sleep away from the wetlands. Those garlic-rubbed hunters. They think they're masking their scent from prey, not preventing tick-borne illnesses. The knowledge works even when the understanding lags behind. Now, as twilight paints the cave walls in violet hues, watch Mara perform her most sacred duty, passing knowledge to the next generation. She doesn't simply list herbs and symptoms, she teaches pattern recognition. Holding a struggling apprentice's hand steady, she guides fingers to feel the difference between a healthy pulse and a fevered one, between normal swelling and the ominous heat of infection. This is the foundation of diagnostics, not textbooks, but tactile memory, the subtle language of the body passed from living flesh to living flesh. The fire burns low now, its light gilding the strands of a spider web in the cave's corner, nature's perfect bandage, still waiting to be used. Outside, the first peepers begin their evening song, a sound unchanged since the Stone Age. Let their rhythmic chirping lull you towards sleep, carrying with it the echo of ancient healers, whose legacy lives on in every doctor's touch, every nurse's intuition, every medical breakthrough that begins with someone asking, "What if we tried?" As you drift deeper into dreams, remember, the distance between Mara's hands and a modern surgeon's is shorter than it seems. Both reach into the dark with knowledge hard-won from those who came before. Both stand on the shoulders of giants who walked the earth long before history began its count. The summer heat hangs heavy over the camp, pressing down like a wool blanket soaked in humidity. The air thrums with the drone of cicadas and the ever-present buzz of flies, those tiny, persistent enemies that Stone Age healers battled just as fiercely as any predator. This season brings its own unique medical challenges. Infected insect bites, spoiled food, the relentless sun beating down on unprotected heads. But it also unlocks nature's most generous pharmacy, and with it, a cascade of medical breakthroughs that would shape healing for millennia to come. Let me show you something remarkable happening by the riverbank. The healer, let's call her Nara, kneels in the mud, carefully harvesting bright yellow flowers that grow in spiraling patterns. These aren't just pretty blossoms, they're the tribe's most closely guarded secret. When properly prepared, they can do something extraordinary. Stop pain without stealing awareness. Watch as Nara sings softly to the plants while harvesting not superstition, but sophisticated botany. The song helps her count the precise number of flowers needed. Too few are ineffective, too many deadly, and the vibrations cause ripe seed pods to tremble, revealing the most potent specimens. Now follow Nara back to camp, where she begins the delicate preparation. Using a mortar stone worn smooth by generations of use, she crushes the flowers with a few drops of river water, then mixes in a pinch of white powder scraped from a certain mushroom. The resulting paste smells faintly of honey and earth. When applied to the temple of a warrior suffering a cracked rib, his face transforms within minutes, the lines of pain smoothing, while his eyes remain alert. This is the Stone Age equivalent of targeted pain relief, a precursor to modern anesthetics, though Nara would explain it as convincing the pain spirits to sleep while the warrior stays awake. Meanwhile, at the cooking fires, another medical revolution simmers. The tribe's oldest woman, gray hair, tends a peculiar brew of meat scraps and turtle shells bubbling in a clay pot. The stench is unbearable, but no one complains because this foul-smelling concoction is why the tribe hasn't lost a child to the summer-wasting disease in 3 years. What gray hair doesn't know is that by slow cooking cartilage and bone, she's creating primitive collagen rich in glycine and proline nutrients that modern science will one day recognize as crucial for gut healing. She only knows that when the hot weather comes and children's bellies rebel, this bone soup makes them strong again. Now shift your gaze to the children playing near the shallows. Notice how their game mimics adult life but with a healer's twist. They're not just hunting pretend deer. They're also setting pretend broken legs with sticks and vine splints, brewing medicine from crushed berries, even practicing carrying injured comrades on makeshift stretchers. This isn't accidental play, it's the tribe's most sophisticated medical training program. By the time these children reach adulthood, they'll have rehearsed every emergency scenario hundreds of times. Their response is ingrained deeper than instinct. As afternoon melts into evening, witness the most startling innovation of all. The tribe's flint napper, a quiet man named Derv, presents Nara with something unprecedented. Razor-sharp obsidian blades mounted on antler handles, crafted solely for healing. These aren't crude multipurpose tools, they're the world's first surgical instruments. The finest blade, no thicker than a pine needle, can remove a cataract-clouded lens from an elder's eye, a procedure ancient skulls show was surprisingly successful. Another, curved like a new moon, perfect for draining abscesses without damaging surrounding tissue. But the true marvel comes at dusk, when Nara uses her new tools to perform what future archaeologists will call the first documented surgery. A young girl complains of a tiny moon trapped in her ear, constant ringing, and pain after a swimming mishap. Using a polished bronze mirror to reflect firelight, Nara peers into the ear canal and spots the problem, a seed pod lodged deep inside. With steady hands, she uses Derv's finest tool to extract it, then packs the canal with honey-soaked moss to prevent infection. The entire procedure takes less than 3 minutes, a miracle of Stone Age precision. As fireflies begin their evening dance outside the cave, Consider how much modern medicine owes to this summer night long before history began. The concept of sterile procedure born from observing wounds cleaned with running water healed best. The first understanding of anatomy from butchering game and seeing how tendons connect. The earliest pain management from plants that still form the basis of many pharmaceuticals today. The central fire burns low now, its embers pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. The last sound you hear before sleep claims you is the rhythmic scrape of derv snapping stone, shaping yet another obsidian blade, pushing the boundaries of what Stone Age hands can achieve. Let that sound carry you into dreams, where ancient healers and modern doctors walked together through endless fields of golden flowers, comparing notes across the vast expanse of time. The harvest moon hangs swollen over the camp, its amber light painting the standing stones with liquid gold. The air carries the crisp tang of drying herbs and the musky scent of pelts being prepared for winter, but beneath these familiar autumn smells lurks something darker. This is the season of thinning veils, when the ancestors whisper louder and healers must battle not just physical ailments, but the creeping dread that tightens chests and steals sleep. Tonight, we enter the most mysterious realm of Stone Age medicine, the treatment of invisible illnesses that dwell in the shadowed corners of the mind. Watch closely as the healer let's name her Vela approaches a warrior sitting motionless by the dying fire. 3 moons ago, Thorn was the first to spear the great cave bear during the summer hunt. Now he barely lifts his head, his once powerful arms slack at his sides. The tribe calls it ghost sickness, the weight of a life taken pressing down on the soul. Modern words might say depression or PTSD, but labels matter less than what happens next. Vela doesn't reach for herbs or poultices. Instead, she produces a deer antler rattle and begins a slow circuit around Thorn, shaking it in a rhythm that matches the distant river's flow. As she moves, she narrates the bear's life from birth to final confrontation not as a hunter's tale, but as the bear might have told it. This is primal narrative therapy, giving Thorn permission to release the spirit he's been carrying. With each pass, Vela's steps grow lighter until she's practically dancing, her shadow leaping across the stone walls like the very bear they honor. Then something remarkable happens without prompting. Thorn lifts his own rattle and joins the rhythm. No words are spoken, but by ceremony's end, his shoulders sit slightly easier beneath his furs. Meanwhile, at the children's sleeping area, a different kind of healing unfolds. Little Mist, barely 5 winters old, has been plagued by night terrors since witnessing a boar goring. Watch how the grandmothers handle this. They don't dismiss her fears or force bravery. Instead, they craft a tiny doll from woven reeds, its face painted with charcoal to resemble the boar. Then they guide Mist through a ritual of control, letting her trap the boar in a miniature pit, then safely spear with a twig. This isn't just play, it's systematic desensitization, therapy millennia before psychologists would give it a name. By giving Mist agency over her trauma in miniature, they're rewiring her terror into mastery. Now turn your attention to the cave's deepest chamber, where flickering torchlight reveals walls covered in handprints, some small, some large, all pressed in ochre that still glows red after centuries. This is the tribe's most sacred healing space. Here, those haunted by spirit dreams come to leave their mark and their burdens. The process is simple but profound. The afflicted mix clay with their own saliva, press their palm to the stone, then whisper their nightmares into the imprint before walking away without looking back. Archaeologists will one day find these prints and marvel at their longevity, never guessing they served as Stone Age psychotherapy, externalizing trauma by giving it physical form to be left behind. As the night deepens, witness Vela's most controversial treatment. The baker woman who talks to her long-dead husband isn't shunned as mad, she's given an honored role as the one who remembers. Each evening, she sits by the fire reciting names of ancestors and their deeds. The tribe understands something we often forget, that what looks like madness can sometimes be grief needing witness. By channeling her visions into communal memory keeping, they transform potential illness into cultural treasure. The true genius of Stone Age mental health care reveals itself in these moments. The way anxious tribespeople are given repetitive tasks, like grinding grain or weaving ancient occupational therapy, how seasonal mood changes are treated with extended sun exposure near reflective pools of water light therapy by accident, the practice of troubled individuals to the hearth's warmth in the gut brain, connectionizing niazing, closest to the happened trubbing connection through instant now. As the moon reaches its zenith, watch Vela prepare her nightly rounds. Her medicine pouch contains surprising tools, a smooth river stone worn from generations of anxious hands clutching it, a hollow bone flute for guiding breath into calm patterns, a bundle of sage whose smoke seems to lift heavy thoughts. These are the ancestors of modern therapeutic tools, the fidget stone before stress balls, the flute before guided breathing apps, the sage before aromatherapy diffusers. The central fire has burned low now, its embers winking like watching eyes. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls the same sound that once made your ancestors pause and listen for messages from the spirit world. Let that call carry you towards sleep, knowing that every modern mental health breakthrough rests upon these ancient intuitive understandings. That the best therapists still channel Vela's wisdom when they help patients externalize trauma or reframe narratives. That healing the mind has always been part art, part science, and wholly human. As you drift deeper into dreams, imagine Vela's hands wrinkled but steady, placing one last offering at the base of the cave paintings, a tiny clay figurine with a bear's head and human body. It's her way of honoring both Thorn and his bear, a symbolic reconciliation of hunter and hunted. And in that moment between wakefulness and sleep, you might just hear the faintest rattle of antlers in the wind, still shaking in perfect rhythm with your slowing heartbeat. The first frost of the year glistens on the cave entrance like a beaded curtain of crushed diamonds, each icy particle catching the pale morning light. Inside the cavern, the air hangs heavy with the scent of fermented berries and smoked meat, the tribe's precious winter stores that will mean the difference between survival and starvation. This is the time of endings and preparation, when the last medicinal plants must be harvested before the snows bury them, and every wound treated with extra care, for cold slows healing as surely as it slows flowing water. Watch now as the healer let us call her Bryn moves through the camp with quiet purpose. Her hands, wrapped in rabbit fur against the chill, carry a basket lined with moss. She is searching for something precious. The last of the year's yarrow blooms, those stubborn holdouts that cling to life in sheltered crevices long after their sisters have gone to seed. These final flowers possess something special, a potency born of surviving against the odds, just like the people who need them. See how Bryn whispers to each plant as she harvests, her breath forming misty shapes in the cold air. This isn't mere ritual, it's practical botany. By leaning close, she can detect the faintest medicinal scent still clinging to the petals. Only those still fragrant get carefully plucked. The rest she leaves to ensure next year's growth. Every movement is a dance of preservation and need, for she knows better than most how thin the line is between taking too much and not taking enough. Now follow Bryn to the place where the river still runs unfrozen near its source. Here, in water so cold it burns the fingers, she washes the yarrow with meticulous care. The cold water, she's observed over the years, seems to lock in the plant's healing properties better than warm. What she doesn't know is that the near-freezing temperature preserves volatile oils that would otherwise evaporate, an accidental cryogenic technique millennia before flash freezing would be invented. Back in the cave, witness Bryn's true genius at work. A young mother, weak from a difficult birth, lies shivering despite the furs heaped upon her. The winter chill has seeped into her bones, slowing recovery. Bryn prepares a treatment that combines last summer's knowledge with winter's harsh lessons. The precious yarrow flowers steeped in water warmed with hot stones, not boiled, which she's noticed makes some medicines weaker. A poultice of fermented berries that sting when applied but seem to wake up, sluggish blood, a broth made from the bones of summer's fish, simmered for days until the liquid turns milky white. This is nutritional medicine before the concept of nutrients existed. The yarrow fights infection, the berry poultice stimulates circulation, and the fish bone broth provides easily absorbed calcium and collagen, a triple assault on postpartum complications born from generations of observation. Meanwhile, in another corner of the cave, the tribe's toolmaker works quietly on what will become Bryn's winter medical kit. A curved antler needle for stitching wounds too thick to close with pine resin glue, thin sheets of birch bark, scored to fold into temporary cups for measuring medicines, a hollowed gourd Fitted with a leather stopper, the tribe's first dedicated medicine container, each innovation seems small, but together they represent a quantum leap in medical technology. No longer must every healing tool serve double duty for hunting or cooking. These are the first items crafted solely for the art of healing. As the day wanes, Bryn performs her most sacred duty, the passing of knowledge. With the entire tribe gathered around the central fire, she begins the winter storytelling. But these are no ordinary tales. Woven into each narrative are medical lessons disguised as adventure. The hunter who survived a wolf bite by keeping the wound clean with running water. The elder who lived 20 winters past his prime by eating certain mushrooms each spring. The child who overcame the coving sickness by sleeping where the cave walls sweat minerals. This is the tribe's living medical textbook, their version of case studies and clinical trials preserved in oral tradition. The children listening don't realize they're being trained. They only know these stories by heart by the time they reach adulthood. The lessons etched as deeply as the cave paintings themselves. Now, as the fire burns low and the cold creeps closer, notice how Bryn checks each tribesperson one last time before sleep. Feeling foreheads for fever without needing to ask, adjusting furs to better cover a healing one, pressing an ear to a child's chest to listen to breaths as naturally as we might check a watch. This is preventive medicine in its purest form, the healer's constant vigilance that catches before it takes root. She doesn't wait for complaints. She knows her people's normal so intimately that any deviation shouts for attention. The last embers glow like distant stars as you drift toward sleep. Outside, the wind begins to howl, the same sound that once made your ancestors huddle closer together for warmth and safety. Let that ancient lullaby carry you under, knowing that every modern medical miracle, from sterile surgery to antibiotics to vaccines, rests upon foundations laid by Bryn and her kind. That the pulse of her wisdom still beats in every doctor's instinct, every nurse's kind touch, every researcher's determination to push just a little further into the unknown. And as sleep finally claims you, you might just feel the ghostly brush of rabbit for wrapped fingers checking your forehead, ensuring you rest easy before the long winter's night fully descends. The deep winter silence blankets the camp like fresh snow, broken only by the occasional crack of ice in the nearby trees. Inside the cave, the air carries the mineral tang of melting snow, mixed with the musky scent of sleeping bodies huddled together for warmth of living, breathing insulation against the killing cold outside. This is the season of quiet miracles, when Stone Age medicine faces its ultimate test, healing without the luxury of fresh herbs, without the freedom to seek new remedies, with nothing but stored wisdom and desperate creativity to bridge the gap until spring. Watch now as the healer, let's call him Orin, moves through the sleeping forms with the lightest of steps. His hands, though roughened by cold, move with deliberate gentleness as he checks each tribesperson for the telltale signs of winter sickness. The faint sheen of fever sweat on a child's brow, the shallow breathing of an elder that might signal lung sickness, the restless twitching of a hunter's injured leg that warns of deepening infection. Every observation is stored away in Orin's mind, like nuts hidden by squirrels, precious resources to be used when needed most. Now see him kneel by the dwindling medicine stores, his face illuminated by the faint glow of embers. The summer's bounty has been reduced to a handful of dried willow strips hanging from the ceiling like forgotten laundry, a pot half filled with fermented honey that bubbles slowly even in the cold bundles of woolly thyme leaves that somehow retain their pungency despite the season. With these sparse ingredients, Orin works a kind of alchemy. He carefully shaves slivers from a willow strip into a bone cup, adds a dollop of the bubbling honey, then crumbles a single thyme leaf between his fingers. The mixture smells sharp and sweet all at once, an ancient precursor to modern cough syrup that will soothe the throats raw from breathing cave dust all winter. But the true test comes when a muffled cry rings out from the cave's depths. A young mother clutches her belly in pain, the early signs of womb sickness that claimed 3 women last winter. Orin moves swiftly but calmly, his mind racing through possibilities. Fresh herbs would be ideal, but winter offers none. Instead, he reaches for something unexpected, the tribe's ceremonial drum. Watch as he places it near the woman, its surface warmed by the fire. With practiced hands, he begins a rhythm that mimics a healthy heartbeat, not the frantic pounding of fear. but the steady, strong pulse of life continuing. This is sonic medicine before the science of sound therapy existed. The vibrations travel through the stone floor, through the furs, into the woman's very bones. As the rhythm continues, her breathing unconsciously sinks to its tempo, her muscles unwinding like coiled vines. Meanwhile, the toolmaker works on a different kind of healing. Using antler tines and lengths of gut cord, he fashions a primitive brace for a hunter's ruined knee. But this is no ordinary splint. The gut has been soaked in the same fermented honey Orin uses, creating a slow-release medicinal wrap that will keep infection at bay as it heals. It's the Stone Age equivalent of an antibiotic-impregnated bandage, though they'd simply call it clever making. As night deepens, witness Orin's most brilliant adaptation yet. With no fresh plants for poultices, he turns to an unlikely sourcei, the lichens growing stubbornly on the cave's dampest walls. Scraping them carefully into a mortar, he mixes them with melted snow and a precious pinch of salt from last summer's trading. The resulting paste smells like damp earth, but when applied to an infected wound, it works wonders, the lichen's natural acids fighting bacteria, while the salt prevents further spoilage. The children, though they don't realize it, are learning crucial medical lessons even in play. Their favorite game involves treating their dollies with pretend medicines made from snow and wood chips. But watch closely and you'll see them mimicking exact techniques. The way Orin checks for fever by pressing lips to foreheads, the precise angle at which he sets broken bones, even his habit of humming while preparing remedies to ensure proper mixing time. This is knowledge passing through generations as naturally as breath. Now, as the fire burns down to glowing coals, observe Orin's final act before sleep. He takes a small stick of charcoal and adds to the cave's medical records not written words, but symbols etched in a niche only healers know. A series of lines recording which treatments worked this winter, which failed, and mysterious symbols that might represent patient reactions. This is the birth of medical documentation, the first step toward clinical studies, though it will be millennia before anyone pens the first formal case report. The wind howls outside like a living thing, rattling the hide covering the cave entrance. The sound would have terrified your ancestors, but also comforted them, proof their shelter was holding against the storm. Let that same wind lull you toward sleep now, knowing that every modern medical marvel from MRI machines to robotic surgery owes its existence to Orin's winter perseverance. That the determination to heal against impossible odds still beats in the heart of medicine today, as vital as the drum that echoed through the cave all those centuries ago. And as you drift into dreams, you might just hear the faintest rhythm still pulsing beneath your own heartbeat, an ancient reminder that healing is, and always has been, the most human art of all. The first whispers of dawn creep through the cave entrance like hesitant spirits, painting the frost-covered walls in shimmering silver blue. The air inside hangs heavy with the scent of crushed pine needles and slow-cooked bone broth, a medicinal aroma that has permeated these stone walls for generations. This is the fragile time between winter's grip and spring's promise, when the ice still clings stubbornly to the land, but the first brave shoots begin their impossible journey toward the sun. And with this changing season comes the most dangerous transition of all for Stone Age bodies, the time when winter's deprivations meet spring's new microbes in a perfect storm of vulnerability. Watch closely as the healer, let's name her Elia, conducts her morning rounds with eyes that miss nothing. The winter has etched new lines into her face, but sharpened her instincts to a razor's edge. She moves first to the children's sleeping area, where the little ones stir restlessly under their furs. Her hands, warm from the embers she tends all night, drift like autumn leaves as she checks each small forehead for fever. When she reaches the smallest child, barely 2 winters old, her fingers pause. The skin is cool, but something in the breathing pattern catches her attention. She bends lower, pressing her ear to the tiny chest, and hears what mother and father cannot yet perceive, the faintest rasp, like wind through dry reeds. The spring coughing sickness has come early this year. Now witness Elia's genius unfold. With no fresh herbs yet sprouted, she turns to the tribe's most precious stored remedies. Dried coltsfoot leaves carefully harvested last spring at peak potency, a gourd of fermented elderberry syrup that bubbles gently when stirred, the last few drops of pine resin collected from south-facing trees. But it's what she does next that separates healer from herbalist. Using a deer scapula as a mortar, she grinds the colt's foot with a few grains of precious salt traded from distant seas, then mixes in a dollop of the elderberry syrup. The salt, she's observed over the years, makes the medicine bite deeper, though she doesn't know it helps with electrolyte balance and mucus thinning. She warms the pine resin over a candle until it liquefies, then adds a single drop to the mixture, creating what might be history's first cough suppressant expectorant combination. As the child swallows the bitter draught, Elia does something extraordinary. She places the little one's hands on her own throat and begins humming not a random tune, but specific vibrations that travel through tiny fingers into congested lungs. This is the ancestor of modern chest physiotherapy, though she'd call it teaching the breath spirits the proper path. Meanwhile, at the cave's entrance, the hunters prepare for the first spring hunt, but with a healer's twist. Watch how Elia inspects each man, not just for strength but for subtle signs of winter's toll. The hunter whose knuckles whiten when gripping his spear, a sign of joint inflammation from cold. The young man whose eyes adjust quickly to sunlight, winter vitamin deficiency. The veteran whose old wound atches with the changing of pressure, a living barometer of pain. For each, she provides customized prevention. A poultice of rendered bare fat and ground nettles for the inflamed joints, a strip of dried liver, carefully hoarded all winter. For the light-sensitive eyes, a binding of heated stones, wrapped in damp leather for the atching scar. This is personalized medicine, most primal form treatment, tailored not just to the illness, but to the individual's unique vulnerabilities as they emerge from seasonal stress. As midday sun warms the cave mouth, observe Elia's apprentice, a girl of perhaps 12 winters, as she performs her first unsupervised treatment. An elder complains of clouds in his eyes, his vision milky with what we'd call cataracts. The girl retrieves a bone tube from the healer's kit and places it gently against the man's temple. Through trial and error, Elia's people have discovered that certain frequencies of sound can temporarily improve cloudy vision, perhaps by vibrating fluid in the eye. As the girl hums into the tube, the elder's face transforms with wonder. "The fog lifts," he exclaims. "It's a fleeting improvement, but in a world without surgery, even brief clarity is a gift." Now turn your attention to the women preparing the season's first fresh meal, a thin broth made from early greens barely poking through the snow. Elia oversees this like a battlefield general, insisting certain herbs be added not for flavor, but for their spring awakening properties. What she's actually creating is a natural detoxification protocol after months of heavy winter foods. Dandelion leaves to stimulate sluggish livers, wild garlic to reboot gut bacteria, pine needles for their vitamin C boost. The entire tribe will receive this cleansing regimen, whether they feel they need it or not, preventive medicine on a communal scale. As evening falls, witness Elia's most profound act. She takes the apprentice to the Cave of Memory, a special chamber where generations of healers have left their marks. Using a charred stick, she adds new symbols beside ancient ones. A wavy line above an eye for the sound vision treatment, cross sticks with a circle for the joint poultice, a series of dots by the cough remedy formula. This is the living medical textbook, being updated in real time. Knowledge passed not just through words, but through symbols that will outlast language itself. The fire burns low now, its embers pulsing like a slowing heartbeat. Outside, the first spring peepers begin their evening song, a sound your Stone Age ancestors would have recognized instantly as nature's promise of renewal. Let their rhythmic chirping carry you toward sleep, knowing that every modern medical protocol, from seasonal allergy preparations to post-hibernation animal health checks, echoes Elia's ancient understanding of transitional care. And as you drift into dreams, you might just feel the ghostly brush of a warm hand checking your forehead, an instinct so primal it transcends time itself. The spring equinox sun hangs, suspended in the pale sky, like a glowing ember, its warmth barely penetrating the lingering chill in the air. The ground exhales the rich, damp scent of thawing earth, an aroma that stirs something primal in both the people and the newly awakened creatures of the forest. This is the season of rebirth and reckoning, when winter's toll must be settled, and the tribe's survival through the harsh months is celebrated with rituals older than memory. But for the healer, let us call him Tuvin, this fragile time between seasons brings the most delicate balancing act of the entire year. Watch as Tuvin moves through camp with the quiet precision of a heron stalking fish. His medicine bag, nearly emptied during the long winter, now bulges with the first tender offerings of spring. Fuzzy willow catkins that will become pain-relieving tea, sticky poplar buds steeping in bear fat to create antiseptic salve, bright green nettles collected at dawn when their stinging power is weakest. But it's the small leather pouch at his waist that holds his most precious find, a cluster of wild garlic bulbs, with their papery skins still intact. These he treats with near reverence, knowing their power to cleanse the blood after months of winter's heavy meats and stale stores. Now follow Tovin to the riverside, where the ice has only recently relinquished its grip. Here, he performs what seems like magic, but is in fact sophisticated seasonal medicine. Using a hollow reed, he blows gently across the surface of the water, creating ripples that carry to the opposite bank. This isn't idle play, he's testing the water's temper, as his teacher called it. When the ripples move sluggishly, the water remains too cold for the healing rituals. But today, the ripples dance swiftly, signaling that the river is ready to receive winter's sickness. One by one, Tovin guides the tribe into the freezing current. The hunter with the persistent cuff submerges up to his chest, while Tovin massages his back in precise motions to loosen phlegm. The elder with stiff joints is supported in the shallows as the water's buoyancy allows her to move freely for the first time in months. Even the children wade in, giggling at the cold while unknowingly receiving nature's most powerful immune boost. This is hydrotherapy in its purest form, the shocking cold, stimulating circulation, the flowing water carrying away winter's stagnation, the ritual cleansing the spirit as much as the body. Meanwhile, back in camp, Tovin's apprentice prepares the next stage of spring healing. In a ceremonial bowl passed down through generations, she mixes crushed dandelion roots for liver cleansing, early chickweed for vitamin replenishment, a single drop of precious fermented honey to activate the mixture. The resulting paste smells like wet earth and iron, an acquired taste that the tribe consumes without complaint, trusting in their healer's wisdom. As afternoon wanes, witness Tovin's most subtle art. He walks the perimeter of camp, observing not people but the ground itself. Here, a patch of disturbed earth where someone vomited after the cleansing ritual. There, the yellow stain of urine in melting snow. To modern eyes, these might seem mere messes, but to Tovin they're diagnostic tools. The vomit's texture reveals who needs gentler detoxification. The urine's color indicates levels of winter dehydration. Even footprints in mud show whose steps are uneven from lingering pain. This is environmental medicine, reading health in the traces people leave upon the land. Now watch as evening falls and Tuvin performs his most sacred duty. The children gather round as he scatters a bundle of dried herbs onto the central fire, a blend of sage, mint, and something pungent they call bear's breath. The smoke curls upward in thick spirals, and one by one each tribe member walks through it, allowing the fragrant cloud to envelop them. This is no mere ceremony. Tuvin has observed that those who undergo this spring smoke ritual suffer fewer summer fevers. He doesn't know about airborne pathogens or antiseptic properties, he only knows it works. The practice will evolve over millennia into fumigation techniques, surgical smoke sterilization, and even the aromatic therapies used in modern hospitals. The fire burns low now, its smoke thinning to faint wisps that curl like living things in the moonlight. Outside, the first spring peepers begin their nightly chorus, a sound that would have told your ancestors the earth was truly awakening. Let their rhythmic songs carry you towards sleep, lulled by the knowledge that every modern spring detox, every seasonal vaccine, every annual physical exam owes its existence to Tovin's ancient understanding of cyclical healing. And as you drift into dreams, you might just catch the faintest scent of smoke and fresh herbs, the eternal signature of healers, bridging winter's damage with spring's renewal. The first true warmth of spring has settled over the land like a benevolent spirit, coaxing tender green shoots from the thawing earth and painting the hillsides with delicate wildflowers. The air hums with the industrious buzzing of bees, newly emerged from their winter slumber, tiny alchemists, transforming pollen into nature's most perfect medicine. For the healer, let us call her Yizra. This is the season of abundance after scarcity, when the earth offers up its healing gifts with generous hands, and her people's bodies begin the delicate work of shedding winter's lingering burdens. Watch as Yizra moves through the sun-dappled forest, with her gathering basket, her calloused fingers dancing over plants with the precision of a master musician. She harvests with sacred intentionality. Comfrey leaves picked just as the dew dries their cells plump, with regenerative mucilage dandelion roots unearthed, with a special curved bone tool to preserve their medicinal integrity, stinging nettles collected, while singing softly to warn the plant spirits of her intentions. But today, her attention keeps returning to a particular rocky outcrop, where the first purple flowers of the season have erupted in a vibrant carpet. These are her people's most sacred healers, tiny blossoms they call star tears for their celestial shape. Modern herbalists would recognize them as lungwort, but Yeshra knows them simply as breath menders. Watch how she harvests them with ritual care. Only every third plant is touched to ensure continued growth. The leaves are cut at an angle to shed rainwater and prevent rot. A pinch of tobacco is left at the base of each harvested plant as thanks. This isn't superstition, it's sophisticated ecological medicine, ensuring the plant's survival even as she harnesses their power. Now follow Yashra back to camp where the real magic begins. At her grinding stone, she combines the fresh herbs with remnants of winter-stored medicines. Dried elderberries from last autumn for immune strength, a precious lump of pine resin saved for emergencies, the last few drops of fermented honey that bubbles with active enzymes. The resulting paste smells like the forest itself, earthy, pungent, alive. When applied to the chest of a child still wheezing from winter's coughs, the effect is near miraculous. Within minutes, the little one's breathing eases as the herbs work their bronchodilating magic. Meanwhile, at the river's edge, Yesra's apprentice conducts a different kind of healing. The winter hunters sit in a semicircle as she guides them through movements that seem part dance, part combat stance. This is the spring retuning, a series of stretches and exercises designed to realign spines compressed by months of huddling against cold, strengthen muscles atrophied from winter inactivity, restore flexibility to joints stiffened by damp and disuse. The hunters grumble good-naturedly but calmly, for they've seen how those who skip the retuning suffer more injuries during the first spring hunts. This is physical therapy in its most primal form, prehabilitation, before rehabilitation was even a concept. As midday sun warms the camp, witness Yishra's most controversial practice. She takes the season's first wasp, nest, a small papery orb only half built, and steeps it in a sealed gourd of fermented berry wine. The resulting infusion will become a powerful anti-inflammatory, though the tribe believes it borrows the wasp's fighting spirit. When a warrior presents with a swollen knee from an old injury flaring up in the damp weather, Yezra applies the pungent liquid with a feather. The swelling retreats like a tide going out, an early example of immunotherapy, though she'd never call it that. Now observe the children playing nearby. Their game involves digging clay from the riverbank and shaping it into tiny humans. But look closer, they're not just playing. Each clay figure has a dot of ochre where the heart would be, a line of charcoal down the spine, small pebbles placed at the joints. This is anatomical study disguised as play, passing basic medical knowledge to the next generation through storytelling and imitation. The children don't realize they're learning, they only know this is how one molds a medicine doll. As evening falls, Yasra performs her most sacred duty. She takes the first fresh herbs of spring and bundles them with red willow twigs, then hangs them over each family's sleeping area. This is more than ritual. The volatile oils released by the drying plants repel early season insects carrying disease, ease respiratory irritation from months of breathing smoky air, promote restful sleep through gentle aromatherapy. The tribe will sleep deeply tonight, their bodies continuing the healing work as they dream. The central fire burns low now, its embers winking like watching stars. Somewhere in the forest, a nightingale begins its even song, the same melody that once lulled your ancestors to sleep after long days of spring renewal. Let its liquid notes carry you down into dreams, knowing that every modern medical breakthrough, from anti-inflammatories to physical therapy to immunotherapy, has roots in Yara's ancient seasonal wisdom. And as sleep claims you, you might just catch the faintest scent of crushed leaves and fresh blossoms, the eternal perfume of healing hands, bridging winter's damage with spring's renewal. The summer solstice sun hangs molten in the cloudless sky, its golden light pouring over the land like honey over warm bread. The air thrums with the drowsy hum of cicadas, and the occasional splash of fish breaking the river's mirrored surface, a lulling rhythm that seems to slow time itself. For the healer, let us call him Koran, this is the season of paradox, when abundant life and lurking danger dance their eternal dance, when every remedy must be gathered at its peak potency to carry the tribe through the coming winter's scarcity. Watch as Koran moves through the noonday heat with the deliberate pace of one who knows the value of conserved energy. His gathering basket, woven from river reeds treated with pine pitch to make it waterproof, already holds treasurest John's wort flowers bursting with red-tinged oil that stains his fingertips, nature's antidepressant harvested at solar zenith, yarrow stalks cut precisely above the third leaf node where their medicinal alkaloids concentrate, a sticky mass of propolis, carefully from a high hive the beads, and the serving is people, but his serving is true prize weights, great to glen the elderberry thicket. There, in a spot known only to healers, grows a spiral of bell-shaped flowers the color of twilight. These are the dreamer's bell rare blooms that open only at the height of summer's power. Koran kneels before them as one might approach a sleeping predator, his hands moving with reverent precision. The harvesting ritual is complex. Only north-facing flowers are taken, as they contain less of the dangerous nightshade alkaloids. Each stem is pinch rather than cut to prevent oxidation of the milky sap. A lock of his own hair is buried at the roots in offering and genetic link to future harvests. This is psychopharmacology, and it's in the careful balancing active compounds that will become compounds that will become tinctures for, easing the dying into peaceful transitions, guiding warriors through trauma too deep for words, helping seers walk the razor's edge between vision and madness. Now follow Koran back to the healing hut, where the air hangs thick with the scent of drying herbs. Here the summer's work takes form. Clay pots of oil steeping in sunlight to extract flower essences will. Bark strips drying in perfect parallel lines to preserve their medicinal curvature, a hollow log where mushrooms release their spores onto to prepared grain, the tribe's first cultivated medicine. But today, Koran begins something unprecedented. Using a deer antler spoon, he carefully layers fresh dreamer's bell petals, last year's preserved honey, a sprinkle of salt from the distant sea. The mixture is sealed in a bladder and buried near the hearth, where constant warmth will catalyze fermentation. In 3 moons' time, it will emerge as the tribe's first true tincture, a medicine more powerful than the sum of its parts. Meanwhile, outside the hut, the summer healing rituals unfold. A circle of elders sits bare-chested in the sun, their wrinkled skin being anointed with a paste of crushed marigold and bear fat. This is no mere ceremony. Koran has observed that those treated thus suffer fewer skin lesions when winter returns. The UV-absorbing carotenoids in the flowers act as nature's sunscreen, though the tribe believes it stores sunlight under the skin for dark days. At the river's edge, the children participate in their own medicine. Under the apprentice's watchful eye, they wade through shallows thick with watercress, chewing the peppery leaves as they go. This is nutrition as prevention, the green's bounty off. Iron to rebuild winter-depleted blood, vitamin C to prevent scurvy, folate for healthy growth. The children know only that the river salad makes them strong. But Koran's records, etched as symbols on a carefully curated set of antler plaques, show exact correlations between summer greens consumption and winter survival rates. As afternoon storms gather on the horizon, witness Koran's most brilliant adaptation. He has arranged the healing hut's roof thatch in overlapping layers that funnel rainwater into specific collection vessels. Water that first runs off the comfrey roof goes to wound-washing mid-storm flow from the yarrow thatch becomes eye rinse. The final wash from chamomile roofing makes sleeping tea. This is hydrotherapy married to phytotherapy, water memory science, before the concept existed. Now observe the evening's most critical ritual. As lightning flickers in the distance, Koran prepares the solstice fire using 13 sacred woods arranged in a healing spiral. Each family brings a bundle their winter ill's actual scraps of bandages, clothing worn during sickness, even locks of hair from those who didn't survive. These are placed at the fire's center with whispered prayers. When the blaze reaches its peak, Koran hurls in a handful of the dreamer's bells. The resulting purple flames release aromatic compounds that ease respiratory congestion, calm anxious minds, act as natural insect repellent. The entire tribe breathes deep as the medicine fire works its magic aromatherapy on a communal scale. The storm breaks at last. its cooling rain hissing against the hot stones around the fire pit. The people retreat to their shelters, their skin tingling with sun medicine, their lungs full of healing smoke, their bellies packed with nutrient-dense greens. Corin remains a while longer, adding today's discoveries to the antler records, another link in the unbroken chain of healing knowledge stretching back to time's dawn. As the last embers fade to ash, let the distant rumble of summer thunder lull you into sleep. Know that every modern medical advancement, from tinctures to sunscreens to nutritional therapy, echoes Corin's ancient seasonal wisdom. And as dreams take you, you might just glimpse those purple flames, still dancing against your closed eyelids, the eternal fire of healing that burns across centuries, never extinguished, only waiting to be tended anew. The air hangs thick with the scent of ripening blackberries and sun-warmed pine resin as the hottest days of summer settle over the land like a heavy fur cloak. The river runs low and slow, its waters turning lazy and warm, a dangerous shift that Corin watches with narrowed eyes, for he knows still water breeds invisible threats. This is the season of fevers and festering wounds, when the very abundance of life creates new dangers, and the healer's role shifts from nourishing to protecting. Watch now as Corin moves through the buzzing midday heat to a place where the river widens into still pools. The surface shimmers with an oily iridescence that would fascinate the children, but makes Corin's stomach clench. Kneeling at the water's edge, he dips a hollowed gourd attached to a long sinew cord, carefully skimming just below the surface where the water runs clearest. Even so, when he holds the vessel to the light, tiny specks swirl within the nearly invisible larvae of water demons, as his people call them. From his medicine pouch, Corin produces 3 items: a palm-sized piece of porous stone traded from distant volcanic lands, a twist of fibrous bark soaked in bitter resin, the dried bladder of a river fish. Stretched taut over a willow hoop with these, he constructs a primitive but effective water filter, layering the materials in a specific order that strains out nearly all visible impurities. The tribe doesn't understand germ theory, but generations of observation have taught them that water passed through this system causes less stomach sickness. Still, Corin takes it further, adding a pinch of crushed juniper berries to the filtered water, their antimicrobial oils killing what the filter misses. Now follow him back to camp where the real test awaits. Little Bren, the potter's youngest, lies listless in the shade, her skin burning despite the heat. The summer flux has taken hold, her body purging from both ends as it tries to rid itself of whatever poison she ingested. Corin's diagnosis is swift and precise, not the usual bad meat or spoiled berries, but water sickness. His treatment combines ancient wisdom and desperate innovation. Tiny sips of the filtered water mixed with powdered charcoal to absorb toxins, a poultice of mashed blackberry leaves and clay to soothe the fiery gut-cool river stones at pulse points to lower fever without shocking the system. But the true miracle comes next. From a sealed horn container, Corin produces a thick, sour-smelling paste, last autumn's fermented elderberry mash that somehow survived the winter. Modern science would identify it as teeming with natural probiotics, but to Corin it's simply gut medicine. He mixes a fingertip's worth with honey and coaxes it between Bren's cracked lips. Within hours, the purging slows. By next dawn, the child sits up asking for food. Meanwhile, at the drying racks, Corin's apprentice tends to another summer threat. The hides stretched over willow frames aren't just for clothing, they're medical supplies being treated with a special infusion of oak galls for their tannic acid to prevent rotting, bee propolis as natural antibiotic, nettle fibers woven into the sinew threads for added strength. These prepared hides will become clean wound coverings when winter comes, emergency water carriers during migrations, sterile birth mats when the time arrives. But summer's greatest medical challenge emerges as the sun dips below the trees. The hunters return carrying not game, but one of their own big tarn with his forearm swollen to twice its size and streaked with angry red lines. A boar's tusk graze that should have been minor has turned deadly. The wound pulses with heat, and Tarn's eyes shine with the glassy sheen of blood poisoning. Corin's response is swift and brutal in its effectiveness. From the healer's hut, he retrieves a freshly hunned obsidian blade, a pot of last winter's preserved maggots, carefully starved for 3 days to ensure cleanliness. A length of hollowed elderberry branch first, the lancing a precise incision that releases a gush of full-smelling pus. Next, the maggots are introduced to clean the necrotic flesh, their tiny mouths far more precise than any tool. Finally, the elder tube is inserted to maintain drainage, secured with spider silk stitches that will dissolve on their own. The treatment seems horrifying to modern eyes, but the results speak for themselves within 5 days. The red streaks fade. Within 7, new pink flesh forms. By the next moon, Tarn is back hunting, though he now avoids boars with uncharacteristic caution. As fireflies begin their evening dance, observe Corin's final act of the day. He takes a flat stone from the river and begins etching symbols, not just the usual tallies of treatments given, but something new. A series of wavy lines above a circle, next to a stick figure holding a vessel. The first recorded public health warning, a message to future generations about still summer waters and their hidden dangers. The night deepens, the air growing heavy with the promise of another scorching day to come. Somewhere in the forest, a nightjar begins its churring song, the same sound that once lulled your ancestors to sleep after long days of summer survival. Let its rhythmic cadence carry you into dreams, knowing that every modern medical protocol, from water purification to one debridement to probiotic therapy, has roots in Corin's ancient seasonal wisdom. And as sleep claims you, you might just feel the ghostly press of a cool stone against your own forehead, an eternal gesture of comfort spanning the centuries. The first crisp mornings of autumn arrive like a whispered warning, painting the forest edges in fiery hues of crimson and gold. The air carries the damp, earthy perfume of fallen leaves, beginning their slow return to the soil, nature's great alchemy, turning life into nourishment for the next cycle. For the healer, let us call her Elva. This is the season of urgent gathering, of preserving not just food but medicine, of preparing the tribe's bodies for the long winter sleep that looms on the horizon. Watch as Elva moves through the frosted grass at dawn, her breath forming silver clouds in the chill air. Her gathering basket is lined with soft moss to cushion precious finds, and her knife hung from a single piece of volcanic glass gleams with morning dew. Today she seeks the most potent medicines of all, those plants that have weathered the full cycle of seasons, and now concentrate their essence into roots and bark before winter's slumber. Her first stop is at the base of a gnarled willow, whose golden leaves shiver in the breeze. With practiced hands, she peels narrow strips of bark, only from the south-facing side, never enough to harm the tree, just sufficient for her needs. The inner bark, still faintly green, smells sharply astringent. This is nature's aspirin factory, though Elva knows it simply as pain bark. Her processing method is precise. The strips are coiled tightly and stored in a birch bark container with honey left to ferment for 13 days, one for each moon in the year. Then dried slowly near, but not too near, the cooking fires. The resulting medicine will ease winter's joint pains and fevers with remarkable efficiency. Now follow Elva uphill to where the oaks stand sentinel over the forest. Here she collects not acorns, but the peculiar growths that bulge from the branch's oak galls, formed when wasps lay eggs in the tender bark. To most, these are useless lumps, but to Elva they're surgical treasure. When ground and mixed with rainwater, they create a black ink for marking infection boundaries on skin, a hardening agent for setting broken bones, a styptic paste to seal bleeding wounds. But the true prize waits in the meadow beyond. The first frost has kissed the tops of the milk thistles, triggering a biochemical change that makes their roots supremely potent. Elva sings softly as she digs an old harvesting song that serves a practical purpose by keeping her breathing rhythmic and measured. The roots come up dripping with white sap that stains her fingers sticky and bitter. These will become liver tonics to help process winter's heavy fats, emergency nutrition, when sickness prevents, eating a last resort stimulant for mothers in prolonged labor, as midday sun warms the crisp air. Witness Elva's most ingenious preservation method. At the edge of camp, she has constructed what looks like a miniature longhouse from woven branches and stones. Inside, layers of herbs dry on elevated racks, while below, a smoldering fire of specific woods, juniper for antiseptic smoke, apple for sweetness, pine for resinous preservation, creates the perfect environment for preventing mold without over-drying, infusing medicinal smoke into the plants, maintaining just enough warmth to slow enzymatic breakdown. This is phytochemistry in its infancy, the precise manipulation of plant compounds through controlled environments. Meanwhile, the tribe undergoes their own autumn preparations. under Elva's guidance. Children chew spruce needles to clean their teeth and prevent scurvy. Elders receive gentle massages with infused oils to boost circulation. Hunters are blood, just a little with careful cuts to thin winter's thickness from their blood. This last practice, seemingly barbaric, actually stimulates hematopoiesis, the production of fresh blood cells that will carry them through months of vitamin D deprivation. As evening falls, observe Elva's most sacred duty. One by one, she examines each tribesperson, noting the hunter whose summer wound needs extra willow bark, the mother-to-be who require additional iron-rich herbs, the elder whose eyes grow cloudy, what we'd call cataracts, for each. She prepares a personalized winter medicine bundle, leather pouches of specific herb blends, carved wooden cups marked with dosage notches, clay tokens imprinted with symbols for when to take each remedy. This is preventative care at its most personalized, ancient medicine, recognizing that one size never fits all. The first stars emerge as Elva adds to the medicine records, not on stone or antler this time, but on a stretched deer hide painted with orange charcoal. Here she documents which plants were most potent this year, how much was stored, where rare specimens were found. This living document will guide next year's healer, and the one after that, a chain of knowledge stretching into the unknown future. The fire burns low now, its light gilding the hundreds of drying herb bundles hanging from the rafters like some mystical forest canopy brought indoors. Outside, a great horned owl calls, the same sound that once made your ancestors pause and listen for messages from the spirit world. Let its haunting cry carry you towards sleep, knowing that every modern medical advancement, from personalized medicine to plant biochemistry to sterile preservation techniques, has roots in Elva's ancient autumnal wisdom. And as you drift into dreams, you might just catch the faintest scent of wood smoke and drying sage, the eternal perfume of healing knowledge, being carefully preserved against the coming cold. The first snowflakes of winter drift lazily from the iron-gray sky, each one a crystalline promise of the long silence to come. The world holds its breath as the last stubborn oak leaves finally release their grip, spiraling down to join their fallen kin. Inside the cave, the air is thick with the scent of drying herbs, smoked meat, and the underlying musk of closely packed bodies a-living, breathing insulation against the killing cold outside. For the healer, let us call him Duran, this is the season of quiet vigilance, when every cuff, every fever, every aching joint must be tracked like prey and addressed before it can multiply in the close winter quarters. Watch as Duran moves through the dim cave by touch as much as sight, his fingers reading the tribe's health in the textures of skin, the quality of pulses, the subtle changes in breathing patterns. The winter healing hut has been carefully prepared, the walls lined with moss-packed hides for insulation and sound dampening, a special ventilation shaft carved to allow smoke escape without heat loss. The floor subtly sloped to the drainage channel for keeping the space clean. This is infection control in its most primal form, on an environment designed despite outside to heal despite the harsh word outside. Now observe Duran's morning ritual. He begins at the medicine storage, an alcove lined with precisely arranged containers. Willow bark strips coiled in birch bark tubes, fermented garlic paste sealed in bladder sacks, dried mushroom powders in carefully labeled gourds. Each remedy has its place, its season, and its purpose. But today, Duran's attention is drawn to a small clay pot buried partway in the earthen floor. When he lifts the lid, a pungent aroma fills the space, last summer's wound salve, preserved through an ingenious method. A base of rendered bear fat for long-term stability, infused with antiseptic yarrow and plantain, sealed with a layer of beeswax that now peels away like ancient parchment. The salve has transformed over months of cool, dark storage, its constituents marrying into something more potent than when fresh. Duran nods approvingly. This batch will see them through the worst winter wounds. Meanwhile, near the central fire, the tribe's daily health rituals unfold. Children line up for their winter bites, tiny doses of fermented fish oil to prevent rickets. Elders sip pine needle tea to keep joints flexible. Pregnant women receive special iron, rich broth simmered with copper stones, unbeknownst to them, creating natural electrolytes. Duran moves among them, observing not just who takes their preventative medicines, but how they take them. The hunter who grimaces at his fish oil may need extra encouragement. The elder whose hands shake holding the teacup requires a different delivery method. This is medication adherence before prescription labels, the healer's memory and attention ensuring compliance. Now witness Duran's response to winter's first real challenge. A wave of coughing sickness sweeps through the children's sleeping area, that particular deep, wet bark that signals bronchial distress. His treatment combines layers of ancient wisdom, steam inhalations using a leather tent and hot stones infused with thyme, chest poultices of mustard flower and bear grace to break congestion, rhythmic back percussion using cupped hands in precise sequences. But the true innovation comes next. From a high shelf, Duran retrieves what looks like a child's toy, a series of hollow bones lashed together with gut cord. When blown into correctly, it produces a deep, resonant tone that vibrates through small chests, loosening mucus through sheer physics. The children call it the hummingbird, never guessing it's actually their great-grandfather's invention, the first primitive nebulizer. As the day wanes, Duran turns to mental health, always precarious during the long confinement. He guides the tribe in what seems like simple storytelling, but is actually sophisticated group therapy. Hunters reenact past glories to combat seasonal depression. Women weave worry dolls from scraps to externalize anxieties. Children play games that reinforce coping skills through metaphor. This is cognitive behavioral therapy millennia before its official discovery, the understanding that winter's darkness is minds as well as bodies. Now observe Duran's nightly recording method. Instead of antler or stone, he uses a slab of ice brought in from the river, its surface perfect for etching temporary notes with a bone stylus. Each day's health observations are recorded, then allowed to melt away come spring, leaving no permanent record of individual illnesses, and thus no stigma. Only general patterns are preserved on more permanent media, an ancient form of HPAA compliance. The fire burns low, its light painting dancing shadows across the cave walls where generations of healers have left their marks. Outside, the wind begins its nightly howl, the same sound that once made your ancestors draw closer together for warmth and comfort. Let that primal lullaby carry you towards sleep, knowing that every modern medical protocol, from infection control to respiratory therapy to seasonal affective disorder treatment, has roots in Duran's ancient winter wisdom. And as you drift into dreams, you might just feel the ghostly press of a warm palm against your forehead, the eternal gesture of healing vigilance that spans the centuries. The dead of winter has settled over the land like a frozen shroud, transforming the world into a crystalline kingdom of piercing silence and aching beauty. Inside the cave, the air hangs heavy with the mingled scents of wood smoke, drying herbs, and the earthy musk of closely huddled bodies. The central fire's glow paints the walls in flickering amber hues, illuminating the face of the healer, let us call her Nara, as she prepares for her nightly rounds. This is the season of deepest introspection and quiet crisis, when the cold has seeped into bones and souls alike, and every medical intervention must address both body and spirit. Watch as Nara moves through the sleeping forms with steps as silent as falling snow. Her hands, though roughened by cold and work, retain their healing sensitivity as she checks each tribesperson. The elderly couple whose breathing grows shallower each night, the child recovering from frostbite on 3 fingertips, the hunter whose cuff has lingered too long. Her diagnostic tools are simple yet profound. A feather held before nostrils to detect the faintest, a polished stone warmed by the fire to test circulation in extremities, pressed to foreheads more accurate than any hand for fever. Now observe Nora's most ingenious winter adaptation, the medicine screen. Woven from willow withes and stretched hides, this portable partition serves multiple purposes. Creates privacy for examinations in the crowded cave, blocks drafts during delicate procedures, serves as a teaching tool with medicinal plants pressed between hide layers. Tonight, behind the screen, Nara tends to the tribe's gravest concern. The young mother Lyra lies shivering despite the furs heaped upon her, her skin burning, her milk dried up, her newborn weakening by the hour. Postpartum infection has set in, and winter offers no fresh remedies. Nara's treatment combines desperate innovation and ancient wisdom. The cleansing, she irrigates the infection with warmed urine, nature's sterile solution in deep winter, using a hollow bird bone as a syringe. The ammonia burns, but kills surface bacteria. The drawing a poultice of fermented honey and crushed oak gall creates an osmotic pull, drawing pus from deep within. The honey's enzymes break down biofilm, while the tannins tighten tissue. The nourishing from her most secret stash, Nara produces a gourd of bright red paste last summer's rosy hips, preserved in bare fat. Packed with vitamin C and bioflavonoids, this will bolster Lyra's collapsing system. Meanwhile, at the cave's entrance, Nara's apprentice performs another critical winter task. Using a deer's scapula as a snow shovel, he clears ventilation channels in the ice that seals them in. This is no mere housekeeping. The precise patterns of airflow prevent carbon dioxide buildup, allow smoke to escape without heat loss, create air currents that minimize germ spread. The design, perfected over generations, is the ancestor of modern ventilation systems. As night deepens, witness Nara's most subtle art. She moves among the children not with medicines, but with stories-specific tales chosen for their healing properties. For the anxious child, a story about a mouse who outwits an owl through calm thinking. For the grieving sibling, a tale where lost loved ones become stars. For the restless boys, epic hunts that channel energy into vivid imagination. This is narrative therapy at its most primal, shaping young minds to weather winter's psychological storms. Now watch as Nara prepares the night's most important ritual. In a special bowl carved from burl wood, she mixes a pinch of precious summer preserved sage, crumbled dried mushrooms that promote restful sleep, a single drop of fermented berry syrup placed near the fire. This blend releases slow smoke that eases respiratory distress, calms night terrors, suppresses cough reflexes so all may rest. The final act comes in deepest night. Nara takes her bone stylus and makes marks on a stretched hide, not tallies of illness, but patterns. Circles within circles that track the moon's phases against symptom flare-ups, the relationship between barometric pressure and joint pain, the intervals between communal illnesses. This is epidemiology in its infancy, the first systematic study of disease patterns through time. The fire has burned low now, its embers glowing like a cluster of miniature suns. Outside, the northern lights dance across the star-strewn sky, the same celestial display that once filled your ancestors with equal parts wonder and dread. Let their shimmering light lull you toward sleep, knowing that every modern medical advancement from infection control to ventilation science to medical record keeping has roots in Nara's ancient winter wisdom. And as you drift into dreams, you might just hear the faintest whisper of a lullaby, the eternal sound of healing presence that has comforted humanity through the long winter nights of history. The endless winter night is finally breaking. Pale golden light filters through the ice-encrusted cave entrance, casting prismatic rainbows across the stone walls. The air carries the faintest whisper of though a subtle shift from the metallic bite of deep cold to something softer, damper, pregnant with the promise of renewal. For the healer, let us call him Torvak, this is the most dangerous transition of all. The tribe has survived the brutal winter, but now faces the precarious dance between lingering cold and spring's first challenges. When weakened bodies meet fresh pathogens stirred awake by the melting snow, Torvak moves through camp with a hunter's alertness, his sharp eyes missing nothing. The winter has etched new lines into his face, but honed his instincts to a razor's edge. His first stop is the medicine stores, where he conducts a careful inventory. Only 3 strips of willow bark remain, precious pain relievers that must be rationed. The last gourd of fermented honey shows tiny bubbles, still rising live enzymes intact. The emergency wound moss, cultivated on birch bark plates, grows thin but viable. This is tribe medicine calculating need against dwindling resources with cold precision. Now watch as Torvak turns his attention to the tribe's most vulnerable. The elders gather near the fire, their joints swollen from months of cold. For them, he prepares a special treatment. The thawing warm stones wrapped in danamp moss are placed along skin spines, hydrotherapy meeting thermotherapy. The loosening a paste of the last preserved ginger root mixed with precious salt is mass presaged into aching hands. The strengthening a broth made from boiled leather scraps, unbeknownst to them. Rich in collagen, rebuilds connective tissue. Meanwhile, the children undergo their own ritual, the first brush of spring sunlight on winter pale skin. Torvak has them stand at the cave mouth in rotating shifts, their faces upturned to catch the weak but vital rays. This is vitamin D therapy before vitamins were named, the instinctive understanding that light heals what winter has depleted. But the true test comes when the hunters return, with the season's first fresh meat, a scrawny hare barely worth the effort. Torvak oversees its preparation with clinical precision. The liver is reserved for the recovering mother and her baby, The bones are cracked for their precious marrow, nature's multivitamin. Even the blood is collected in a birch bark cup and mixed with crushed early greens. This is nutritional medicine at its most essential, every part of the meager cube till transformed into targeted therapies. As afternoon wanes, Torvak performs his most sacred duty, the changing of the healing walls. With careful hands, he scrapes away the winter's soot from the sacred cave paintings, revealing the ancient medical knowledge beneath. Herbal diagrams drawn in ochre and charcoal, star charts showing optimal harvesting times, handprints of healers past, surrounding symbols of successful treatments. This living medical text is the tribe's most precious inheritance, studied by firelight through the long winter nights. Now witness Torvak's genius adaptation to spring's first threat. As the snow melts, the hunters report strange tracks near camp, wolves made bold by hunger. Torvak's solution comes not from weapons, but from medicine. A paste of fermented silverweed root rubbed on spear tips, the rare blue lichen scraped from north-facing rocks, a final secret ingredient known only to healers. When a wolf takes a treated spear wound, it doesn't just retreat, it avoids the area entirely. The combination creates a systemic reaction that marks the animal's territory with warning scents. This is zoonotic disease prevention in its earliest form, creating biological boundaries through medicinal chemistry. As dusk falls, Torvak begins the most important ritual, the passing of knowledge. His apprentice, a girl of 14 winters, prepares her first independent remedy under his watchful eye, measuring willow bark by finger widths, testing honey fermentation by sound when tapped, judging poultice consistency by how it drips from a bone spoon. This is hands-on medical education, the unbroken chain of healer training stretching back generations. The fire burns low now, its embers pulsing like a slowing heartbeat. Outside, the first spring peeper frogs begin their evening song that your Stone Age ancestors would have recognized as nature's all-clear signal after winter's trials. Let their rhythmic chirping carry you toward sleep, knowing that every modern medical protocol, from nutritional therapy to physical rehabilitation to preventative care, has roots in Torvak's ancient seasonal wisdom. And as you drift into dreams, you might just feel the ghostly brush of sunlight on your own winter-weary face, the eternal promise: no winter lasts forever, and healing always comes with the turning of the seasons. The morning air carries the first true warmth of the coming spring, thick with the scent of damp earth and the faintest hint of green pushing through winter's last grasp. The river, so long locked in icy slumber, groans and cracks as it shakes off its frozen bonds. For the healer, let us call her Yolva, this is the season of both peril and promise, when the land awakens with healing bounty, but winter's grip still lingers in weakened bodies and depleted stores. Watch as Yolva stands at the cave entrance at dawn, her nostrils flaring as she tests the wind like a stag scenting danger. There's a particular quality to the Ede, a metallic tang beneath the thou smells that sets her healer's instincts humming. She turns to the east, where the rising sun paints the scattered clouds in hues of blood and gold, and her breath catches. The signs are clear, the spring bleeding will come early this year. This is no mere seasonal shift, but a dangerous transition period when melting snow floods the lowlands, stirring up stagnant water ailments. Early blooms trigger unpredictable reactions in winter-weakened systems. The first returning birds bring unknown pathogens from distant lands. Yelva moves through camp with renewed urgency, her medicine bag heavy with the last of the winter reserves. She stops first at the children's sleeping area, where the little ones stir restlessly under their furs. Her hands, warm from clutching a heated stone, drift like leaves as she checks each small body, pressing an ear to tiny chests to listen for the wet rattle of snowmelt sickness, running fingers along gums to check for the spongy weakness of winter scurvy, sniffing lightly at breath to detect the sartang of gut imbalance. 3 children show the early signs: their skin too pale, their energy too low. For them, Yolva prepares the spring wake up, a potent blend of the last precious drops of fermented cod liver oil, vitamins A and D, crushed pine needles steeping in warmed water, vitamin C, a pinch of dried nettles saved from last autumn iron infusion. The mixture smells like fish and forest, and the children gag at the taste. But Yolva is firm: this bitter medicine will fortify their blood against the seasonal shift. Now follow Yolva to the river bank, where the ice has retreated just enough to reveal the first water plants stirring from their frozen sleep. Here she performs a delicate operation. her knife flashing in the morning light as she harvests. Watercress from the icy shallows, its peppery leaves bursting with spring nutrients, cattail shoots, barely breaking the surface, their tender cores packed with starches. The slippery coating on submerged rocks, a biofilm, rich in early spring probiotics. This is the season's first fresh medicine, more precious than gold after the long winter. Meanwhile, back in camp, the adults undergo their own spring renewal. Yelva's apprentice guides them through the cleansing walk, a ritual that seems like simple exercise, but serves as sophisticated rehabilitation. The awakening slow circuits around camp to reactivate atrophied muscles. The shaking deliberate tremors through the limbs to stimulate circulation. The reaching stretches against young saplings to realign winter-curved spines. This is physical therapy before the concept existed, the careful rebuilding of bodies weakened by months of confinement. As noon approaches, Yelva turns to her most critical task. The birthing woman's time has come, and winter's deprivations have left her dangerously anemic. From her secret stash, Yelva produces a strip of leather soaked in iron-rich bog water, the last handful of dried yellow dock root, a tiny pouch of powdered meteorite stone unbeknownst to her, rich in rare minerals. The resulting tea smells like blood and earth, but when the laboring woman drinks it, her pallor improves within minutes. The tribal women nod knowingly. Yelva's iron medicine has never failed. Now witness Yelva's genius at work as night falls. The first spring rains begin, pounding on the newly exposed earth. Where others see only weather, Yelva sees opportunity. She places collection vessels strategically. Broad leaves funnel rainwater into birch bark containers for the purest drinking water. Hollowed stones catch runoff from the cave's medicinal herb garden, creating mineral-infused tonics. A deer hide stretched between saplings collects enough for the first spring baths. This is hydrotherapy meeting preventative care, the understanding that not all water is equal in its healing properties. The fire burns low now, its light glinting off the hundreds of droplets clinging to the cave entrance like a curtain of liquid diamonds. Outside, the first brave peepers begin their evening song, a sound your Stone Age ancestors would have recognized as both celebration and warning. Let their rhythmic chirping carry you towards sleep, knowing that every modern medical advancement, from nutritional therapy to physical rehabilitation to hematology, has roots in Yelva's ancient understanding of seasonal transitions. And as you drift into dreams, you might just feel the ghostly touch of a warm stone being placed in your hands, the eternal healer's gift of warmth and strength against the last chill of winter. The fire crackles softly now, its golden light dancing across the cave walls where generations of healers have left their wisdom. We've walked together through seasons of survival, from the brutal winters to life-giving springs, witnessing how humanity's first healers turned desperation into discovery. If these ancient stories have helped you unwind, consider joining our tribe of fellow history dreamers. Subscribe so you never miss our next journey into the past. Drop a comment below sharing which Stone Age remedy amazed you most, or simply tell us how long it took you to drift off tonight. Now let the fire's fading glow and the whisper of ancestral voices carry you into peaceful sleep. The past will wait for us whenever you wish to return.